One Piece Supreme Control, Chapter 861 to 880. Chapter 861 Very Hungry. What did you say? Babidi was instantly enraged, and he screamed. No one has ever been in his presence so disrespectful to him. Once, his father's figure was able to fight with the Kaiwang god, and he naturally regarded himself very highly, thinking that he was the person with the highest status in the universe. However, now, the guy who came out of nowhere dares to call himself ugly. Dapra. With a loud shout, Dapra rushed out immediately. Poof. Dapra spat out a mouthful of saliva without hesitation. The saliva was extremely fast, but it arrived in front of Shaya in an instant. The latter did not react at all to this saliva. Bah! The saliva stained on Shaya's clothes, making him feel a little sick. Ha ha! A smile appeared on Dapra's face. The man was stupid enough not to avoid his saliva, waiting to be turned into a stone statue. Crack! The sound of solidification sounded, and Shaya lowered her head and saw that her legs, and waist quickly turned into stone, and finally, it extended to her head, and her entire body became a stone statue. Dapra, hee, this guy is really stupid. He actually dares to face your saliva and doesn't dodge it. Yeah, Lord Babidi, a fool from nowhere. Dapra nodded and smiled. HMPH, but if he dares to call me ugly, I must let him die. Babidi snorted. No problem, Lord Babidi, I'll kill him. Dapra rode. Afterwards, Dapra took a step and came to the side of Shaya's stone statue. He was about to stretch out his hand and hunt the stone statue with one punch. As long as this stone statue is broken, then Shaya will naturally die. This is the power of his magic, which is very strange and powerful. But at this moment, the stone statue began to collapse spontaneously, and a figure stepped out directly from it. Before Dapra could see clearly, a fist had already slammed into his face. Bang! With a dull sound, Dapra had already flown out. Babidi's mouth opened instantly. Shaya, who was already standing beside Babidi, stretched out one hand, and then lifted Babidi directly with a trembling. Interesting trick, but useless. Shah said indifferently. Now, tell me, are you Babidi? It hurts, it hurts. Babidi screamed miserably, his feet trembled, and he felt that powerful force, as if it would crush his head. Are you Babidi? The cold voice came again, and Babidi immediately shouted. I am. The strength to clasp the head is still there, but it doesn't continue to grow, and it stops there. Do you know the king god? Kaiwang god. Babidi froze for a moment, then quickly said, I know. Take me to him. Shaya said coldly. What are you doing with the king god? Babidi asked curiously, but the next moment, the pain came again, making him cry out in pain. At this time, Dapra and other Babidi's guards ran up. But it was only for an instant, and then he was beaten back by Shaya. This terrifying combat power made Babidi's heart freeze. This guy is too powerful, where did he come from? Even Dapra is no match for him, and what is he going to do with Kaiwang god? You're asking too many questions. The indifferent voice came, and the hand loosened, allowing Babidi to speak again. I don't know where the Realm King is, but I have a way to lead him out, and I also have to deal with him. We can join forces. Babidi shouted, sweat rolling down his forehead. Shaya's eyes flickered, and he threw Babidi in the open space in front of him. Let's go then. Where to? Babidi froze. Start your way. The corners of Babidi's eyes trembled, wanting to say if you could not be so anxious, but thinking of the opponent's fighting power, his eyes rolled, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Perhaps, without the power of Majin Buu, this guy can also bring unimaginable blows to Kaiwangshan. After pondering for a moment, he spoke quickly. Let's go now, to Earth. After the order was given, Babidi's men moved quickly. I have to say that Babidi, the evil magician, is still very capable. For example, where he is now is an absolutely hidden planet created by his magical control and the power of Dapra and other servants. Even the King of Gods couldn't get the exact location of this place through divine power scanning. Taking the aircraft prepared by Babiti's men, Shia followed the group of people, quickly left here, and set off towards the Earth. He can use teleportation to go directly to Earth, but this group of people can't. And, during this time, he also needed to get some intelligence through Babiti. The speed of the super aircraft is very amazing. In less than 2 months, Babiti and others have come to the Earth. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Outside the atmosphere. This is it, Lord Babiti. According to the breath we detected, Majin Buu is hiding on this planet. The subordinate respectfully moved towards Babiti, who nodded and glanced at Shaya. Lord Char, it's here. As long as we wake up the demon Buu, he will definitely be able to arouse the king of the realm, and then we can take action against the god of the king. Shaya glanced coldly at Babiti, who shivered all over. Come on. Those 2 words made Babiti feel cold. He instructed his men to act quickly. An hour later, the aircraft settled over Majin Buu. As in the original book, where Majin Buu's egg was located, a deep pit was dug out, and his single was at the bottom. This is Majin Buu. Shaya stood in front of the dome, stroking and touching its surface with his right hand, and could sense the hidden fluctuations in it, like a heartbeat, but it was a long time apart. Char, according to legend, the demon Buu is an ancient evil god, and even the Kaiwang god couldn't defeat him. In the end, he relied on the seal to end the battle. This thing is very dangerous. The gentle woman said to Shaya worriedly. Babiti glanced at the woman, but was surprised that this soul knew so much. At the moment, Shaya completely ignored everyone around him, and closed his eyes. Faintly, he actually felt that the blood in his body could devour the guy in this egg. I feel very hungry. Hungry. Chapter 862 Swallow. Yes, the moment Shia felt that he was touching this giant egg, the blood in his body began to boil, and they were expressing a strong emotion to themselves, which was transmitted from the depths of the body, genes, and chromosomes. They are hungry, very hungry. Want to devour. Muttering, Shah said the exit. What? When Babiti heard these words, he was a little puzzled. However, Shaya ignored Babiti's question, but took a closer look at the giant egg and gently stroked it with one hand. Touch. He could clearly feel the pulsation from the shell of the giant egg, like a heartbeat. Dong dong dong. The sound was very slight, but under Shaya's keen hearing, it was as loud as muffled thunder. After turning around the dome a few times, Shaya's icy face was expressionless. How can this guy wake up? You want to summon it? Babiti said incredulously. He didn't think anyone who knew the power of Majin Buu would be so stupid to ask this question. Although the person in front of him is indeed powerful in Babiti's eyes, he is probably still slightly inferior to Majin Buu. Answer the question. The cold words made Babiti shudder. Just inject power into him. Very quickly, Babiti answered the question. Injecting power. Shaya closed his eyes, and started to gather energy by holding down the right hand of the giant egg, but in less than 3 breaths, a light blue light shone on his right hand. Dong dong dong. The dome seemed to be beating more powerfully, and when receiving energy, he began to express his excitement and joy. It seems to be a lost person who has been hungry and thirsty in the desert for a long time, greedily devouring the energy in Char's hands. These kinds of things, Shaya, who closed his eyes, can clearly perceive them. It's kind of interesting. His eyes flashed, and he pointed to Dapra. You, inject energy into this dome. Lord Babiti. Seeing Char's eyes staring at him, Dapra stood behind Babiti with some fear. Dapra, do as he says, he's helping us summon Buu. The sharp voice was a little gloomy, and the corner of Babiti's mouth hung a smile at this moment. With a smile in his eyes, he looked at Shaya, as if he was looking at a stupid guy. How stupid, arrogant. When Majin Buu is born, you will know how stupid you are. Dapra obeyed Babiti's order, stood up, and began to send energy towards Majin Buu, but after a while, all the powerful energy he burst out was absorbed by Majin Buu. Shaya, who was standing calmly on the side, seemed to be thinking about something, but just watched this scene quietly. The energy is not enough, and the strong need to continue. Before Babiti could speak, Shah said coldly. I see. Babiti nodded, gesturing to Dapora. The latter quickly made eye contact with Babiti, but after 10 seconds, Dapra quickly left the earth. Afterwards, in front of Majin Buu's dome, several strong men began to hold energy-carrying instruments, constantly injecting energy into Majin Buu's egg. Of course, in Shaya's eyes, these energies are undoubtedly pitiful. However, he did not intervene, but let Babiti continue to toss. Time passed slowly, and in the blink of an eye, a month passed. The quality is not enough, and the quantity is enough. Today, Buu's dome is no longer as weak as it started. It is active, and the sound of the heart beating is clearly audible. Standing nearby, the sound of the heart beating is as shocking as thunder. The huge sense of energy made the surrounding void tremble. It is conceivable that if this guy really solves the seal of Biancheng and breaks out of the egg, what kind of terrifying power it will have. Lord Char, the power of Majin Buu is still lacking, so it can be fully recovered. At that time, we will be able to go through it, go to the Kaiju God, and destroy the Kaiwang God. Nodding, Shaya stepped out, and after a few steps, she was already standing in front of the giant egg. Looking at the current dome, feeling the huge energy fluctuations in its body, a smile appeared on Shaya's face. Now you give me the desire and desire to devour. Suddenly, Shia pressed his right hand on the dome. Crack! The enormous power made Majin Buu's hugeness split immediately. Babiti watched this scene with joy and excitement on his face. Great, he's going to replenish his energy and make Majin Buu appear. Great, Majin Buu is about to be born. The majestic energy began to be transported to the giant egg from Char's body in an instant. In just a short 10-breath time, fine cracks appeared on the case of the giant egg, and it began to tremble continuously. It seemed that the next moment, it would explode. The terrifying power inside will be released, bringing fear to everyone. It's coming. It's going to be full, it's full. Babiti excitedly looked at the instrument measuring Buu's energy and shouted excitedly. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. But suddenly, the movement in Shaya's hand stopped, turned his head to him, and looked at Babiti coldly. What's the matter? Lord Sha, why don't you continue to transmit energy? Majin Buu will be born soon. You think I'm going to summon him out? It's just a pity that I let you down. Withdrawing his right hand, Shaya looked stern and stared at Babiti. His gloomy gaze greatly increased Babiti's psychological pressure, and his forehead was sweating. Sir, call him out, and we can go to Kaiwang God. Babiti is still discouraging Char. But the latter, unmoved, just retracted his gaze, turned his head, and continued to observe the dome. I'm just going to devour him. His power, I'm very interested. A faint sentence made Babiti fall into the abyss. This guy, where is the devil from? He wants to swallow Majin Buu, how is this possible? But just after a dozen breaths, Shaya's hand suddenly stuck out, slammed a claws, and turned directly into the dome. He's dead. Babiti shuddered. Although the energy is not yet full, Majin Buu will be born. This giant egg can't bear the stimulation and excitement. As long as it collides with a strong force, he will be born ahead of time. You know, this is the evil god and devil Buu. Chapter 863 Purple. Woohoo woohoo. Terrifying energy fluctuations spread out in an instant, and purple smoke began to appear above the dome. Shaya raised her head expressionlessly, glanced at Xian, and then withdrew her gaze. That's great, this guy prodded and excited the Majin Buu to be born ahead of schedule. Babiti was delighted aside. Only he knew what a terrifying figure Majin Buu was. It can be said that in this universe, no one can defeat such an evil god. It is an immortal existence, and its power is endless. At that time, the 4 realm gods fought against him, and 3 died in the battle, leaving only 1. From this, you can see the horror of Majin Buu. Interesting, stronger than I expected. Xiaoya's expression finally fluctuated, and as time passed, the energy gathered in the dome was skyrocketing. Unfortunately, you are still dead now, otherwise, I can't do anything about you. With a sneer, he reached into his right hand in the dome and suddenly began to absorb it. The billowing purple smoke spread rapidly towards the outside of the dome. The dome was like a train, and the mist was continuously discharged from the top of the head. Woo-hoo! The sound was like a whistle, and purple smoke soon enveloped the place. However, a very miraculous thing was discovered in that dome. Drops of purple liquid. The body began to gather towards Char's right hand, and the moment it touched his hand, it immediately merged into his body. DNA helix, which represents the ultimate mystery of the organism, also began to change. The speed of this absorption is getting faster and faster, and Xiaoya's complexion has also begun to change towards purple. Gradually, half an hour passed. Babidi puzzled and found that the purple smoke in the basement was getting less and less, and the power of the demon Buu in the dome was shrinking rapidly. It's as if being pulled by an unknown force and absorbed by it. How is this possible? According to common sense, Majin Buu should have awakened long ago, and he should have appeared in front of him long ago. What's going on? What's going on? He started to panic, standing in the same place and turning around. Suddenly, Babidi saw the figure standing in front of the dome. He turned purple. What the hell is he doing? For a moment, Babidi was shocked. Majin Buu, he has never seen it, he only knows that it is an evil, powerful evil god who can kill Kaiwang god. But what it looks like, he has never seen. But then, the purple smoke in the room began to shrink, and the vision became clear. He's devouring Majin Buu. Babidi finally realized this incredible thing, and he fell into a panic. Where did this person come from? He was so daring that he even dared to swallow the demon Buu. At this moment, Xiaoya's whole body, skin color has all turned purple. The energy in the giant egg, as well as the mysterious power, was completely absorbed by him. Oh, and an evil will. His eyes penetrated the shell of the giant egg and looked directly at the purple mist inside the egg. It was a kind of icy biting, evil and abnormal will, which made people feel chills all over the body. At this moment, he was staring coldly at Xiaoya, which conveyed extremely angry emotions. It's a pity that you can't stare at me. Since I can't die, then you will die. A dazzling purple light flickered in his eyes, instantly smashing the eggshell and directly piercing the purple mist. In just an instant, the scorching high temperature completely burned the purple mist. Ah! Faintly, a scream resembling the howl of a fierce beast came out, which made the scalp numb. Damn it! Babidi finally figured out what Xiaoya was doing, and he became angry. At this moment, he no longer hesitated, and directly displayed his hands, casting magic towards Xiaoya. Abara, Barbara, Bara. An ancient and mysterious tone emanated from Babidi's mouth, and a mysterious force quietly enveloped Xiaoya. As long as you have evil in your heart, you will be controlled by me, you nasty bastard. Babidi said bitterly. Originally, he could control Majin Buu, but who knew that this guy crossed the bar and ruined his affairs. Standing in front of the egg, Xiaoya, who had absorbed all the power of Majin Buu, suddenly trembled, and a trace of confusion appeared in his eyes. Char! The woman shouted, her eyes full of worry. M-shaped mark appeared in front of Xiaoya's forehead, which was exactly the same as that in front of Dapra's forehead. He seemed to be controlled by Babidi. As long as it is an evil creature, Babidi can control it all. Hey, let you kill yourself. Xiaoya's eyes suddenly lost their light, and the whole person became like a puppet. Sha, come to my side. Babidi began to experiment, and he was not sure whether he could control Shaya. Shaking all over, Shaya seemed to want to resist, but after a flash, he stepped up and stood in front of Babidi. His eyes were indifferent, and his whole body exuded an icy aura. Haha, good. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Very good. Babidi burst out laughing. He really controlled the guy. But the next moment, Babidi's smile froze, and his face began to change towards fear. Babidi, are you having fun? A cold voice entered his ears, and he looked up at Shaya at the moment. I saw the M on his forehead suddenly collapsed, and he suddenly moved his hand and grabbed his head. No, don't. Die. Coldly spit out this sentence from his mouth. Shaya's right hand exerted force, and Babidi's head exploded with a bang, and the red and white were left on the ground. Immediately afterwards, Shaya stretched out her hands, her eyes calm. Control DNA sequencing, recombine. In just an instant, his complexion began to return to its original appearance. After 3 breaths, Shaya regained the identity of the Saiyan again, but if you look closely, you can see the deep purple in his eyes, and the purple mixed in between the black hair. Majin Buu was completely absorbed by him. Until now, he didn't even know how powerful he was. When Babidi died, Dapra was the first to wake up. I'm being controlled. Damn, who are you guys? He suddenly woke up, and then looked at Shaya viciously again, gathering strength in his hands, ready to tear the guy in front of him. Chapter 864 Swallow God. Facing the angry Dapra, Shaya just slowly raised his head. His eyes were empty, there was no Dapra's figure, but he looked directly through the former and saw the ghostly woman. Let's go, I already know the location of the Kaiwang God. At this time, Dapra had come to Shaya and punched out. The latter figure flashed slightly, and this punch hit the afterimage. Immediately afterwards, Shaya's hair suddenly changed color, and her dazzling purple hair was shocking. This noble color seemed to symbolize his high status. With just one punch, Dapra didn't even have time to react before hitting him in the head. Boom! With this punch, Dapra was hit into the sky, directly breaking the underground test base, and then pierced through the Earth's atmosphere and was blasted into the universe. In the emptiness of the universe, Dapra was floating, and his head was already broken. In the face of that punch, he had no strength to resist. On Earth, Shaya and the woman walked out of the basement base with just a flash. Afterwards, he nodded to the woman with an indifferent expression. In the next second, the figures of the two of them distorted and disappeared on the earth. The Realm King Divine Star, the Realm King God sitting on the throne, suddenly shrank his pupils. In the center of the originally empty hall, a figure appeared. No, it was two. Who are you? The Realm God stood up and asked solemnly. He could faintly feel that the strength of the person in front of him, that power, was actually shaking the void, causing the void particles around him to tremble. I heard that you have a way to travel through time and space here. Shaya raised her head and asked coldly. Outside the king's temple, Jabez sensed that something was happening here, and flew here quickly. Lord Kaiwangshan, who is this guy? Shaya stood coldly and said nothing. Tell me who you are. Why is it on you? The king's face became even more solemn. There will be, the breath of Majin Buu. Jabez trembled and looked at Char in shock. He was swallowed by me. Shaya said lightly. I found you here through his memory. I know you have a way to travel through time and space, leave it to me. Calm words, as if stating one thing, without ups and downs. But the coercion of the energy on his body, as well as its faint majesty, made Kaiwangshan tense and dignified at all times. The time ring can indeed travel through time and space, but it can't be given to you. It can only be used by the king god. The king of the gods trembled, and secretly hid the ring in his right hand behind his back. The ring of time. Shaya's eyes lit up, and he smiled rarely. It seems that after so long, his purpose has finally been achieved. Give it to me and I won't kill you. Happy Shaya made a promise. But the king god shook his head, and he decisively rejected Shaya. This is not what you should get, he can only be used by Kaiwang god. I'll say it one last time, leave it to me. Otherwise, I'll kill you. Shaya said coldly. The Realm King's face became more solemn, and he could naturally hear the seriousness of the other party's words. If he didn't hand in the ring, he believed that the other party would indeed kill him. Damn, you kid, how dare you threaten the Realm God? At this moment, Jabez shouted angrily. He moved and attacked Shia. No, Jabez, no. Kaiwangshan shouted to stop him. But it was too late. Jabez went straight to Shia's side and punched the opponent with a punch. Bang! This punch hit Shia's face neatly. Such a result made Jabez startled, and Kaiwangshan also trembled. They didn't seem to expect that the other party could be hit so easily. Strength, too light. When the 5 words entered Jab's ears, he raised his head in amazement, but what caught his eye was a rapidly enlarged fist. Boom! With one punch, Jabez was directly smashed out of the realm of the realm of the realm. The realm of the realm, which was cast with the hardest and hardest stone of the realm, could not withstand the power of the punch, and was smashed into a huge gap. Afterwards, Charya turned his gaze to Kaiwang God again. His icy eyes conveyed a tremendous amount of pressure, which made the forehead of the Realm King sweat. Jabez. His eyes were erratic, and he saw Jabez outside shaking a few times, and he was silent. Involuntarily, he closed his eyes in pain. That violent punch directly broke Jabez's life. Opening his eyes again, Kaiwangshan's eyes were filled with determination. I will not give the time ring to you, you give up. Oh. Shaya raised her head slightly, stretched out her right hand, and aimed it at the Realm King. In an instant, the cold aura enveloped the entire body of the Realm King, making his body appear stiff. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Stand up. Then, I will destroy you. The words without any emotion came out, and the real-world king was tense. He clenched his teeth sharply, and launched an attack on Shaya. But with just one punch, the Realm King was knocked back to the throne again, blood spurting out of his mouth. Okay, so strong. After he rushed up, he didn't even see how the other party shot. Immediately after that, Shaya's figure was distorted, and before the Kaiwang God could see it clearly, he had already appeared in front of him. Looking down at Kaio Shen, who was half lying on the throne, Char stretched out his hand and raised Kaio Shen's right hand. You, what are you doing? This is the Ring of Time, right? With a slight smile on his face, Shaya asked aloud. It won't do you any good if you take it, only the King God can use it. The Realm God gritted his teeth. Hee. Facing the words of Kaiwang God, Shaya just smiled. Just absorb you, won't it be fine? His right hand sticks out, aiming at the brow of the Kaiwang God. In an instant, a chilling chill froze the soul of the Realm King, making him unable to resist asking. You, what are you going to do? After devouring Boo, I discovered an ability in him that was very interesting. Sha said softly. His fingertips shone with purple brilliance. No. The Realm King shouted, and under the purple brilliance, it immediately turned into a piece of chocolate. As long as I swallow you, God, I will. Char's face showed a smile, swallowed the brown chocolate in one bite, and then chewed it. After 3 breaths, his body shook, and a powerful force filled it up again. Chapter 865 _ Slowly putting the time ring on his right finger, all kinds of enlightenment flashed in Shaya's eyes. So it is. The use of the time ring is not so easy. Only Kaioshin can use it. It's not a spoof of Kaiohami, but a true fact. Although he devoured the Kaiwang God with the help of magic power, it did not mean that he was the Kaiwang God, nor did he truly integrate the power of the Kaiwang God with himself. Majin Buu's ability is to swallow them into my stomach, but it will take time to really absorb and fuse them. After a while, Shaya figured out this ability. In the original book, although Boo swallowed many people, for powerful people, it is impossible to digest them all at once, but to store them in the body. It's not too far. After a while, when I integrate everything of the World King, I can go back to the past to find you. There was a bright light in his eyes, and he touched the time ring on his right hand. Past time and space, on Earth. In the city center of Satan, at a crossroads, it is red light time, and vehicles are quietly waiting in line. Suddenly, behind the dense convoy, there was a commotion, and there was an indirect collision. Da 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 da. The sound of gunshots suddenly rang out, and the bursting sound made many drivers looking around immediately retract their heads into the window and hold their heads tightly. Even the traffic conductor at the intersection had a terrified face, flicked his feet, and ran away without a trace. Let me out of the way, or else I'll kill you. Quick, 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 get out of the way, get out of the way. Maid, these dogs are biting so hard, I really want to kill them. There are too many of them, let's run. 3 cars in a row passed through the narrow position given up by the convoy, and then sped away. Less than 10 seconds later, the siren sounded loudly, and a dozen Jing cars quickly chased away. This was a robbery case. The robber left quickly after the robbery. The amount of the robbery was nearly tens of millions, which attracted the attention of the management of Satan City. The Jing team was astonishingly efficient and quickly began to chase. But these robbers were so skilled in their cars that they couldn't catch up with them. In addition, these people all carried guns, which made the robbers avoid the rat and dare not act rashly, so they could only hang them from a distance. Such a chase scene went on for more than an hour, adding more than a dozen streets in a row, and passing through most of Satan City, but still did not stop. Come on, get rid of those guys in no time. The robber shouted loudly, held his gun, and kept looking back. Vaguely, they could no longer see the trace of the Jing car. After a quarter of an hour, the Jing car could not be seen behind the button buttocks, and the harsh whistle had disappeared. Only then did the robbers breathe a sigh of relief. However, suddenly, a car in the front slammed to the brakes. Chee chee chee. The screeching sound of tires rubbing the ground sounded, and they pulled forward a full 10 meters before stopping. What are you doing? The robbers yelled, and they were almost thrown out of the car, and their anger was uncontrollable. Looking forward, a young man wearing a black martial arts uniform with blue characters engraved in front of him was standing there with a stern face. This young man didn't seem to have any power, but he gave them a kind of coercion strangely. Stinky boy, are you courting death? However, there were also robbers who raised their guns, pointed at the young man in front, and shouted loudly. You are robbers and I will not let you go. The boy's face was cold and he walked forward step by step. Don't come here or I'll shoot. The robbers panicked when they saw that the young man was crazy, not afraid of their guns. Now, come and surrender with me. Ha ha, what nonsense are you talking about? How is this possible? The robbers laughed angrily and glanced behind. Come on, kill this kid, we'll leave right away, be careful of those guys chasing after you again. The companions began to urge, and faintly, they seemed to hear the whistle of the car again. The robber who raised the gun was sweating on his head and aimed the gun at the boy. Since you want to die, I will fulfill you. Without hesitation, the robber pulled the trigger. Bang! In the quiet alley, gunshots suddenly sounded. But a second later, the robbers looked at the boy standing in front of them with a fist with one hand, and their faces trembled unnaturally. Da! The boy opened his hand, and the bullet casing in his hand slipped quietly onto the front cover of the locomotive. Boom! After secretly swallowing a mouthful of saliva, the faces of the robbers became even more nervous. The whistle came closer, and the robbers began to panic. But the young man stepped on it with one foot, and the huge locomotive was actually dented by his foot. The huge force immediately made the robbers fear. Immediately afterwards, the teenager stepped on the other 2 cars one after another and scrapped them. Then, he returned to the robber with the gun again. Hearing the sound of the car whistle getting closer and closer, This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. With a smile on his face. Listen, don't leave here, or die. Softly threatening the robbers in front of him, the boy seemed to be joking. But after seeing the terrifying power of the other party just now, the robbers will never take the other party as a joke. Well, no. They shook their heads like a rattle. At this moment, even if they faced prison, they didn't want to face this inhuman guy in front of them. Hearing their response, the teenager seemed to nod in satisfaction, snatched the gun from the robber's hand, and pulled the trigger toward the sky. Bang bang bang. The sound was crisp and spread quickly. Then he flickered, and in just a blink of an eye, he had disappeared before the eyes of the robbers. That guy, not a human. The robbers were horrified. The sound of the car whistle was getting closer and closer, and suddenly, just as he was passing through this alley, a loud shout came. It's here. The gunshots just now came from here. I see, they're in there, in the car. Dense J-hingers poured in an instant and surrounded the gang of robbers. So, since the establishment of the City of Satan, a bizarre robbery case was solved like this. Afterwards, according to the account of the relevant personnel, it was the first time they saw such a stupid robber. After stealing the money, they could leave, but they still stood there stupidly, as if their conscience found out and they were waiting for their arrest. The robbers wanted to cry but had no tears. Chapter 866 Red Hair. At this time, the young man disappeared from the front of the robbers, but he turned his head and reached a height of 100 meters. He was parallel to the ground and was flying rapidly in the air. The camera zoomed in to reveal a young face. It was Son Gohan. Compared to 7 years ago, Son Gohan has grown a lot taller and looks a lot more mature. With a faint smile on his face, he is well proportioned and toned, and his face is full of masculinity. What is even more amazing is the powerful aura that his body leaks from the inside out. Yes, 7 years have passed since the year when Xilu was defeated. The plot hasn't changed much, and Satan is still the savior. And Sun Wukong and others lived quietly in the deep mountains. In the past 7 years, Sun Wukong, Sun Wukong, Yang Qing, and Faku, these 4 have cultivated together, and each has improved a lot. For people on Earth, 7 years is a long time, enough to change a lot of things. Soon, Son Gohan had entered the deep mountains, when he found that he had left the suburbs. He jumped, accelerated suddenly, and flew towards his home. Oops, the master is still waiting for me to practice, will it be too late for me? In an instant, Sun Wuhan's speed suddenly accelerated again, and the whole person was as fast as a rocket. But even so, after 3 breaths, when he looked at the watch on his wrist, his eyes flickered again. No, it's still not fast enough. Boom. The next moment, Son Gohan turned into a Super Saiyan, and then he felt that he was not enough, and he transformed again, and it has become a Super Second Stage. At this time, he flew through the air as fast as a streamer. After about a minute, seeing the mountain in front of him, Son Gohan finally breathed a sigh of relief. Glancing at his watch again, his expression softened. That's great, not late. A stream of light passed by, and he fell from the sky and fell into Yang Qing's yard. At this time, Yang Qing was holding a watering can, watering the flowers and plants in the courtyard, with a faint smile on his face. Master. Son Gohan took a deep breath and called. Gohan, your breath is a little messy today. Yang Qing said with a smile, but did not look back. Seeing that the master was not angry, Sun Wukong breathed a sigh of relief and finally felt relieved. On weekdays, his master was quite strict with himself. If he did something wrong, he would be reprimanded. Did something happen after school? Then, Yang Qing asked again. On the way home, I encountered a group of robbers, which delayed a little time. Sun Wukong scratched the back of his head and smiled. Well, but you're not late, so I won't say more. Get ready to start practicing. After saying this, the flour in Yang Qing's hand just finished pouring. He turned his head slowly, revealing Yang Qing's face at this time, and he could clearly see that Yang Qing's face at the moment was no different from 7 years ago, and he even looked younger. Plus, even more surprising, his hair. Yes, his hair is now crimson. This kind of scarlet color is like the bright red color of Sun Wukong when he transformed into Super Saiyan God. Good. Hearing Yang Qing's words, Sun Wufan replied immediately. The two flew up and slowly came to the waterfall behind the mountain. Cause your breathing first, I'll wait for you for 3 minutes. Yang Qing pointed to the big rock in front of the waterfall and said softly. Sun Gohan didn't respond, nodded silently, then took off his clothes and sat down cross-legged. The turbulent waterfall fell down and slammed hard on his back, but he couldn't move the impact at all. 3 minutes later, Sun Wufan stood up with a smile on his face, his breath had returned to a steady state, and his aura had become as tranquil as water. Very well, it's time to start. Yang Qing nodded in satisfaction. Sun Wufan's whole body trembled, and he quickly transformed himself into the second stage of the super tournament. Today's training is still the same as before. If you hit me, you will be successful. The latter nodded, indicating that he understood. This kind of training has already started in 3 years. That is, when the master's hair suddenly turns red. The bright red is very dazzling, but it makes Sun Gohan feel strange, because the color of Saiyan hair is obviously golden. But the strange thing is that from this day on, he can no longer feel the breath of his master, even if he just stands there quietly, but you can't help but ignore the other party, even judging by the breath, there is nothing can't feel it. This can only prove that his master has reached a higher level. When Sun Wufan launched an attack, his speed and strength were obviously many times stronger than those of 7 years ago. Even Yang Qing 7 years ago, who transformed at the same stage, is not necessarily the opponent of Sun Wufan at this moment. However, the next battle and training made Sun Gohan very difficult. He tried his best, but still couldn't touch the master. The Yang Qing in front of him was like a leaf. He threw a punch, and the huge wind force would immediately blow the opponent away. Once, he also tried to reduce the power of the attack, but it was the same as before. As his strength decreases, the leaf will float less, and it will be less effective for the final. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The result is not affected in the slightest. An hour later, Sun Wufan was tired and panting, but he still didn't touch Yang Qing. Very good, you've improved a lot this year. 2 hours later, when Sun Wufan was exhausted and finally unable to support it, Yang Qing smiled and praised. Avoiding Sun Wuhan's attack, he didn't even change his breath, which meant that the opponent's 2-hour attack was useless at all. Go back, let Wukong come over tomorrow, I feel that he seems to have entered another realm some time ago. Yang Qing smiled again. Hearing this sentence, Sun Wufan was amazed. Has Papa gotten stronger? Yes, if I guess right, he should be in Super Saiyan 3 stage. Yang Qing nodded. That's amazing, Dad. Sun Gohan exclaimed. He hasn't stopped cultivating in the past 7 years. It can be said that he is much stronger than 7 years ago, but I am afraid that now he is no longer his father's opponent. In addition, today, I heard from the master that Dad has entered the next stage, so he is no longer an opponent. You'll be there soon too, go. Yang Qing smiled. Chapter 867 Blue. After watching Sun Wufan leave, Yang Qing touched the red hair on his head, feeling a little helpless. 3 years ago, he rushed to combine his divine power with the ancient Super Saiyan bloodline in the Saiyan body, reaching a higher level in one fell swoop. After so many years of accumulation and the foundation in his body, Yang Qing is sure to go further. But the result left him a little confused. He didn't even know whether he succeeded or failed. At this moment, he still remembers the scenes of that day. On that day, Yang Qing was afraid that the breath of the breakthrough would spread and cause damage to the Earth, so he used teleportation to come to a barren planet in the universe. Looking up, there is a beautiful and boundless starry sky. This planet faces a vacuum, and ordinary creatures have absolutely no possibility of survival. For such an environment, Yang Qing is very satisfied. He sat down with his knees crossed, and then began to accumulate quietly. He has been silently adjusting his mood and state, pushing everything in himself to a state of perfection, peak and peak, before he slowly opened his eyes. At this time, Yang Qing's eyes shone brightly, emitting a bright light in the void. His energy was perfect and everything was ready. Then, he started to break through. First of all, Yang Qing stimulated all the Saiyan blood in his body, and the violent power radiated from his body, and the tyrannical energy slammed into the surroundings, making the sky full of dust on the barren planet. It was even more so that the originally dark planet was filled with lightning at this time, shining with golden light, as if it were daytime. In a blink of an eye, his transformation has reached the Super League 2 stage. Crackling. Lightning gathered on his body, making a crisp sound. Yang Qing's transformation is a perfect super race transformation. He has done all the basics extremely well. Even Sun Wukong can't compare to him in this regard. It can be said that in the same level, no one can beat him. Afterwards, his eyes widened in anger, the lightning around his body began to thicken, and a more violent breath surged out. Ah ah ah. A loud roar came from Yang Qing's mouth. His forehead became taller, his long golden hair began to grow, and it stopped when it reached the waist. At this time, his transformation had reached the level of Super Saiyan 3. This is an extremely powerful force. The rolling energy aura vibrates the planet, and even the ground that is 10,000 meters round under his feet burst open. In this way, it was because he deliberately controlled this aura and prevented him from exuding it. If the Super Psi 3 energy that has just broken through spreads out, it can even directly shatter the planet for a moment. At this time, Yang Qing's expression became a little dignified. He knew that the breakthrough was now. Divine power, run. Taking a deep breath, he began to activate the divine power that belonged to the Kaio god within his body. His divine power has already reached the standard of becoming a realm king god, but it is still in the assessment period, so he has not received the inheritance of the realm king god. Once he controls the ring of time, he will immediately become the next realm king god. Slowly, the golden realm god began to flow in his body, and this mysterious light spread to Yang Qing's whole body in an instant, including his skin, bones, bone marrow, and even deep into the cells and nucleus. In an instant, the Saiyan cells in his body began to undergo drastic changes, flowing through this divine power. At this moment, the two collided, and it seemed that some mysterious change had taken place. Boom! The breath on his body began to rise suddenly, and the violent breath was scurrying. Ah! Unable to bear, Yang Qing let out a howl. The electric light on his body is even brighter, and it seems that the next moment, unimaginable power will erupt. Ground continued to split, and the sound of cracking continued, but in just 3 breaths, the ground in a radius of 100,000 miles was split, and several cracks were densely distributed like spider webs. The next second, Yang Qing's body began to undergo miraculous changes. His long golden hair gradually shortened, and gradually became the length of his super game 1 hour. The golden light on his body also changed from time to time, and slowly turned towards blue. But that breath was even more surging and terrifying. This is Super Saiyan. Yang Qing noticed her change and wondered in her heart. After 10 breaths, this violent force is already 1,000 times, 10,000 times the strength of the previous Super Saiyan 3, but the stability of its breath is much stronger than that of Super Sailor 3. Did it work? Yang Qing felt a little strange that he had rushed to the realm of the Super Saiyan god. He had a vague feeling of being unreal, because it was too easy. After so many years of preparation, it was so easy to rush to this new realm. Super Saiyan, those who are familiar with the original work know that this is Monkey King, Vegeta's regular transformation in Super, with more powerful power. He has now reached such a state. However, suddenly, Yang Qing's heart was shocked. Boom! It was as if a dull drum was beating, making his whole body tremble violently. At the same time, Yang Qing's expression changed suddenly. This is... He suddenly felt that the power in his body was increasing again. Breaking through Super Saiyan, I thought it was over. But at this moment... This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Yang Qing understands that this is just the beginning. Ah! How many years of accumulation, once released. The fierce breath broke through the void in an instant and blasted directly into the universe. A dazzling red beam of light, extremely dazzling, like a star, shone on this barren planet. Yang Qing's strength was increasing endlessly, and the barren and huge planet under his feet began to tremble. Boom! The ground trembled, countless huge cracks appeared, and many nameless mountain ranges collapsed. In front of the power released by Yang Qing at this moment, the planet was as fragile as mud. The blue color began to change, and after a flash, it turned red, and his hair turned red in an instant. What's even more amazing is that his face has become young again, like an 18-year-old boy. But on the contrary, the majestic power in him is as vast and boundless as the universe. The red energy fluctuations fluctuated violently around Yang Qing's body. Is this the transformation of Super Saiyan? Slowly shaking hands, the air was directly squeezed. Chapter 868 Black. Crackling. A voice like fried beans came out, and a smile appeared on Yang Qing's face. He doesn't know what his situation is, but in this state, he is obviously more powerful than the previous blue. Moreover, he could clearly feel that his body, his soul, his own energy, and his own everything seemed to be out of the realm of mortals. More powerful than blue. Moreover, this kind of transformation is more stable, its stability. Yang Qing was stunned after a little observation. I can't change back. He was stunned to discover that what he looked like now was purely the state of God created by the fusion of Saiyan blood and divine power. He has been like this ever since. Can't transform, can't go back to black hair. Is this a negative impact? With a wry smile, Yang Qing didn't have much opinion. After all, in such a state, that power was truly powerful. However, what surprised him was that at the next moment, when he felt his body, his expression changed again. This is a black energy, with a violent, fierce, and terrifying aura, suddenly awakened from the deepest cells of the body, from the deepest part of his genes. As if it was a beast that had been sleeping for a long time, it let out a roar. Faintly, in front of Yang Qing's eyes, there seemed to be a gorilla with a height of 10,000 meters, raising his fists and beating Shang. Roar! The orangutan roared up to the sky, bursting out with violent power. Just with a loud roar, the galaxy in front of him collapsed. At the same time, Yang Qing's body also changed in an instant. From his body, a black monstrous energy, black fine lightning, directly collapsed the dimension, causing cracks to appear in the void. In an instant, his power expanded thousands of times and became extremely terrifying. Roar! The tail behind Yang Qing suddenly became longer, but in an instant, it was already 10 meters long, and his figure began to swell faintly. After 3 breaths, he has become 10,000 feet tall, and his appearance has changed into a huge orangutan with red eyes. Roar! At this moment in this life, Yang Qing seemed to have lost consciousness and no rationality. With a roar, a planet in front of him, thousands of light years away, immediately burst open. The terrifying power caused the barren planet under his feet to tremble violently, and it seemed that it might break at any time. No, no one can control me. Get out of here. Suddenly, a terrifying roar came out of the gorilla's mouth. Boom boom boom. 3 times in a row, the 3 planets in front of it shattered again. Finally, 10 seconds later, the gorilla clenched his fists tightly, and the red in his eyes began to disappear, turning to pitch black. This is the bloodline of the ancient Saiyans. Actually, it just broke out at this moment. A low voice came from the mouth of the gorilla. Then, the huge orangutan began to shrink, and after 10 breaths, he returned to normal, revealing the original Yang Qing's figure. Dark hair, dark eyes, and that stern face. The body is surrounded by dark lightning, and there is a kind of terrifying power that makes people palpitate. It seems that at any moment, this young body can shatter the void with a single blow. Is this the product of the ancient Saiyan blood, combined with divine power? Suddenly clenched his fist, and with a crack sound, the dimension of his palm shattered directly. The power that can pierce through dimensions. Yang Qing's dark eyes flashed a deep light. After 3 breaths, his voice came out again. Compared to his original state, the black-haired him looked even more ruthless, as if violence surrounded him all the time. It turns out that this is the ultimate transformation that I produced after merging the 2 sides. I just didn't expect that my transformation turned out to be back to the beginning. With a tremor, Yang Qing's hair returned to red, and his appearance became young again. At the same time, the aura on that body has also become much kinder. If the scarlet-colored him looks amiable and looks like a good gentleman, then after the black-haired transformation, he is like a ferocious evil god, terrifying. Such extremes appearing on his body at the same time makes people feel very strange. Interesting, this breakthrough is really satisfying. Long-term accumulation, under the accumulation of thin hair, really did not let him down. Not only has his life form changed, but he also has the unique transformation of the Super Saiyan Black. Under that kind of power, his mind is extremely rational, calm, and has the power to break the dimension, which is simply the most perfect God's state. The only downside is that it's too brutal. After all, it is the power that stands out from the blood of the ancient Saiyans, and the strong domineering and ferocious aura contained in his blood is difficult for even Yang Qing to suppress. It can be said that Super Saiyan Black is the power of the beast transformed into a human form. And, in this state, he has 2 transformations. One is a gorilla shape like a war fortress, and the other is a human shape with black hair and red tail. Such a unique transformation, I am afraid that he has searched the entire Longzhu world, and he is the only one who can. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Finished. Now, even without the Ring of Time, I have all the abilities of a god. Smiling and nodding, Yang Qing pointed a finger, and in the distant starry sky, the 3 planets that had just collapsed quickly recovered, but in less than 10 breaths, the light of the stars flashed again. Now, I want to see the power of the god of destruction. Eyes flashed, Yang Qing smiled. Saiyans are belligerent. After the breakthrough, he faintly felt that maybe he could fight the god of destruction. However, instead of really looking for the god of destruction, he chose to hide the desire and hope in his heart. The new power has not yet been mastered, so let's practice for a while. At this moment, inside Yang Qing's body, the blood from the ancient Saiyans was perfectly fused with divine power. His cells turned red, and every movement was filled with enormous energy. At first glance, Yang Qing actually gave people a faint glowing feeling. Such a divine body is very powerful. You must know that this is not the state of Sun Wukong's successful transformation after gathering 5 kind Saiyans, but the state of the true God in which the blood of the Saiyans and the gods are perfectly integrated. Chapter 869 Yang Qing is very satisfied with this breakthrough. Afterwards, he stayed on the barren planet for about a month to get familiar with the state of Chao Sai God at the moment. In such a new state, the power expands, and as long as the powerful him trembles at will, the dimension may collapse. He didn't dare to go to the Earth like this, it was too dangerous. If he went there, it was very likely that just a sneeze would cause an explosion in the large open space in front of him. Because, at this moment, Yang Qing's body is full of energy, even if he just takes a breath, it will contain powerful energy. After roughly being able to control his own power, Yang Qing just returned to Earth. Up to now, 3 years have passed. Yang Qing has controlled 80% of this huge energy, and the remaining 20% may escape and spread to the void when attacking. But this is already his biggest cultivation achievement in 3 years. For 3 years, he did not think about how to become stronger, but chose how to control this sudden burst of power. During the promotion process that day, Yang Qing could see clearly. In that short breakthrough process, he went through 3 transformations. The first stage, Super Saiyan, was the result of transformation. The second one is the red state he is in now, and the third one is the Super Black that he would not dare to use easily even now. His current normal state is beyond Super Saiyan 3, and Super Saiyan has directly achieved it. It is conceivable to imagine how huge the energy and power required to be familiar with the control. Even if it was him, in the past 3 years, when he used his power, he was not careful, lest one accidentally, the earth under his feet would be directly shattered by him. When accompanying Sun Wuhan to practice, the power he used might not even be able to reach 1/10,000th. Yes, at this moment, he is so powerful. The reason for possessing such power is, firstly, the achievements he has accumulated over the years, and more importantly, the potential of the fusion of the 2 forces in his body, which has shaped him into a new life form. Perhaps, the current Yang Qing, called Chao Sai God, is more suitable for him. He is the living Super Saiyan God, indistinguishable from the gods. Sitting slowly in front of the waterfall, Yang Qing had a soft smile on her face. Super Saiyan Black is evil and powerful, and every time he transforms, his whole body is filled with violent thoughts. He had to find a way to curb such thoughts, so instead of cultivating his body, he needed to cultivate his mind more. In the normal state of red, practice kindness, so that once you turn black, you will suppress the violent killing intent. Since ancient times, they have always paid attention to the harmony of yin and yang. In the red state, he is kind and peaceful, and in the black state, he is evil and violent. For the past 3 years, he has been walking on the earth every day, helping the old lady to cross the road. In every good deed, his heart will be more peaceful, and his heart will be filled with joy. After a while, Sun Wukong came here. Hi, Ow, I heard Gohan say you're looking for me. With a smile on his face, Sun Wukong stood in front of Yang Qing who was sitting cross-legged and waved. Opening his closed eyes, Yang Qing smiled. I feel recently, Wukong, you seem to have entered the next level, can you let me see it? Touching his head embarrassingly, Sun Wukong smiled. Hey, I was planning to give you a surprise, but I didn't expect you to know it already. Super Saiyan 3, in the previous era, did not appear. Haha, Yang Qing smiled peacefully. Although Sun Wukong was on the other side of the earth when he broke through, it was very far away, but as a Super Sai God, he could easily sense it. I did break out of the realm of Super Saiyan 2 and into another, deeper transformation. I call it Super Saiyan 3. Sun Wukong said seriously. At this time, Sun Wukong didn't know that Yang Qing had already crossed this realm. However, if there is no Yang Qing in this world, Sun Wukong is indeed the first person to reach this level. But here, Sun Wukong said, hesitated, looked around, and touched the back of his head. I see what you mean. Yang Qing nodded with a smile, then stretched out and pointed out a finger lightly, and in an instant, the scene of the two changed and they came to another place. Wow! Sun Wukong looked at the starry sky above his head and the huge competition platform under his feet, and called out curiously. Where is this place? It's a barren planet in the universe. I used divine power to move the two of us here. Yang Qing replied with a smile. The two of them are the center, and there is a huge cover that radiates thousands of miles. This is an air cover made by Yang Qing. There will be air in it. Otherwise, Sun Wukong will not be able to survive in such an environment. Moreover, the gravity here also simulates an ordinary planet, and Sun Wukong can fully bear it. Here, you can show your strength perfectly. I see, Qing, you're amazing. Sun Wukong praised that although he didn't know what kind of strength he needed to make it like this, Qing's unfathomable depth surprised him even more in his eyes. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. In these years, he and Qing rarely fight again, because he only has a big gap between himself and the other party. However, after he broke through Super Saiyan 3, he found that his power suddenly increased, reaching a level he had never imagined before, so he also gained a bit of confidence. Ching, I'm here, you have to be careful. As a reminder, Sun Wukong directly transformed into Super Race 2. Afterwards, he moved his feet and the figure disappeared. Just blinking, he was already in front of Yang Qing's eyes, and he punched out neatly. Yang Qing dodged easily, but Sun Wukong's speed was astonishingly fast, throwing out hundreds of punches in a row. After more than 10 breaths, Sun Wukong still hadn't hit Yang Qing with a single punch. This result made his face particularly solemn. Qing, you are indeed stronger. You have improved a lot from 7 years ago. Yang Qing smiled. He is telling the truth, the current Sun Wukong can easily defeat Xilu. Looks like I have to use all my strength. Be careful, Qing, this new power is difficult for me to control myself. Yang Qing's eyes narrowed, and interest flashed in his eyes. Come on, do your best. Chapter 874%. After a brief exchange between the two, they both looked at each other intently. Sun Wukong slowly closed his eyes, and the energy in his body began to gather rapidly. After about 3 breaths, a terrible breath suddenly burst out. This breath is so amazing, but in an instant, there are lightning bolts around Sun Wukong's body. Suddenly, the sky began to thunder and lightning, and the aura around Sun Wukong became more and more violent. The golden aura became even bigger. Sun Wukong's hair began to grow longer, reaching his waist, his forehead bulged high, and his face became fierce. Crackling. Golden lightning surrounded him, fluctuating violently. This is Super Saiyan 3, ow. After going beyond Super Saiyan 2, what I've reached. Very nice. Yang Qing praised with a smile, he paid a lot in order to reach Super Saiyan 3. But Sun Wukong has been exploring alone for 7 years, but he has also entered this realm. Super Saiyan 3 feat's explosive power is quite strong, so ow, you have to be careful. Sun Wukong said in a deep voice. Don't worry, attack me, I'm much stronger than you think. Yang Qing said with a smile. Sun Wukong nodded and then assumed an attacking stance. The two of them watched each other carefully, and they confronted each other for a while, but did not launch an attack. After about 5 or 6 breaths, Sun Wukong's eyes squinted, and then suddenly zoomed in. In the next second, he was already in front of Yang Qing. Yes, much stronger than before. In an instant, Yang Qing felt a violent force surging wildly in front of him. He raised his hand to block, and a strong force immediately hit his shoulder. Just use 3% of your power. As soon as his mind moved, Yang Qing's body trembled, and the terrifying power also boiled instantly. Bang bang bang. A series of dull sounds came immediately, and because of this powerful force, the air was constantly making banging sounds. The two of you come and go, and attack quickly on the wide competition platform. Their fists and feet are constantly colliding, hundreds or thousands of times every second. The speed has reached a level that is difficult for ordinary people to see clearly, and the strength contained in it can shatter a mountain in an instant. Bang! Suddenly, Yang Qing punched Sun Wukong in the face. The latter was stunned for a moment, and then turned around again with another elbow, hitting Yang Qing on the shoulder. This heavy blow made both of them take a few steps back and temporarily separated. So strong. Sun Wukong said solemnly. Wukong, you are very good, you can tie me with 3% of my power. Yang Qing praised with a smile. As for that elbow, he didn't even shake his body. Just 3%. Sun Wukong murmured in a low voice, and in his eyes when he raised his head again, there was a dazzling light. At this moment, the blood in Sun Wukong's body began to boil. Ha! With a loud shout, the figure of Sun Wukong disappeared again and appeared in front of Yang Qing. Buzz! This punch broke the void, and with unparalleled power, swept towards Yang Qing brazenly. The latter, with a flickering figure, dodged a punch. Boom! But at this moment, the Qigong wave condensed in the hands of Sun Wukong, and in just a moment, it rushed towards Yang Qing. Yang Qing's eyes narrowed, his right fist clenched tightly, and he punched it suddenly. Bang! The qigong wave condensed with high concentration of energy was directly smashed into pieces under this punch. Boom! The explosion occurred around the two of them, but miraculously, they did not touch their bodies at all. Sun Wukong kicked again and went straight to Yang Qing's belly. The latter's eyes were calm, and he raised his leg to block. In an instant, the ultra-high-speed melee combat began again. This time, the two offensives were continuous. For 5 minutes in a row, he maintained such an ultra-high-speed boxing. 5 minutes later, Yang Qing punched Sun Wukong in the cheek, forcing the latter to retreat. Very good, you can stop me with 4% of my strength. Yang Qing smiled. The latter was breathing heavily, his forehead was covered in sweat, and his face was much paler. Sun Wukong's whole body cells seemed to be shaking slightly, and he couldn't maintain such a high-intensity battle. That's it for today, Wukong, you've made great progress. Seeing the appearance of Sun Wukong, Yang Qing said. Qing, you are really strong. Sun Wukong said with admiration. It can be said that Qing is the most powerful person he has ever seen. Go back. With a wave of hands, Yang Qing and Sun Wukong returned to the place where the earth was just now. Such a method is also almost magical, which makes Sun Wukong admire. Although teleportation can also achieve this level, but it is far from so fast. Slowly closing his eyes, Yang Qing entered the practice again. Sun Wukong looked at the latter, and... This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. Super Match 3 was lifted, and the whole person fell into exhaustion. I still need to keep working hard to get stronger. He secretly said in his heart, and then, he walked towards the house. Time passed day by day. Sun Wufan, Sun Wukong and others were also practicing hard every day. 3 months later, Sun Wufan came to Yang Qing's side. Master, I'm back, let's start practicing. But this time, Yang Qing did not immediately start guiding Sun Wufan, but said with a smile. Gohan, it looks like you brought an interesting person this time. Gohan was stunned, not understanding what Yang Qing meant. Look behind you. Yang Qing smiled and pointed to the sky behind Sun Wufan. Sun Wufan turned around and saw a helicopter circling towards here, and his face changed slightly. Gohan-san. At this moment, a female voice came from the helicopter. Hearing this voice, a hint of helplessness appeared on Sun Wufan's face immediately. It's my classmate, Bidili. He turned his head and explained to Yang Qing. At this time, a voice also ran over. Wu Tian, don't run around and disturb the master's practice. Sun Wufan grabbed Wu Tiandao who was running around, and after a while another figure came over, it was Trunks. The two children were gathered around, playing some kind of incomprehensible game. Yang Qing watched all this silently, with a funny smile on his face. A few minutes later, the helicopter came down, and Bidli jumped off. Gohan-san, so you are here, your home is really far away. Also, who is this classmate? Your friend. Bidili got off the plane and saw Yang Qing. She pointed and asked curiously. Chapter 871 Hearing Bidili's words, Sun Wufan's face changed immediately, and Yang Qing's originally calm expression instantly became dumbfounded. His appearance at the moment is indeed no different from 17 or 18 years old, but if you add the time in the realm of the gods, how to say, he is also an old man who has lived for thousands of years. Bye, Bidili, don't talk nonsense, that's my master. Sun Wufan was in a hurry, shaking his hands, and hurriedly explained. Yang Qing's expression recovered and looked at the two in front of him with a smile. Master. Bidili has double ponytails, big eyes, and looks at Yang Qing very cutely. But he is clearly about the same age as us. Master, at his age, he can be my grandfather. There are special reasons for his appearance. Sun Wufan said helplessly. Bidili blinked, walked in front of Yang Qing, and looked at the latter curiously. Are you really his master? If it's a fake replacement. Yang Qing smiled. Biddy Lee was amazed and turned around Yang Qing for a few times, and suddenly her eyes lit up. Then you are his master, can you also fly? Fly? Yang Qing raised his eyebrows and asked back with a smile. At this time, Sun Wufan came over with a dark face, pulled Biddy Lee away with both hands, and then danced and said a lot to the latter. Finally, he came over and looked at Yang Qing helplessly. Master, me. It seems like I can't practice cultivation today. Go and accompany your little lover. Standing up slowly, Yang Qing smiled. No, it's not like that, Sun Gohan immediately became anxious and waved his hand to explain. Haha, don't worry, just stay with her. Turning around, Yang Qing disappeared after a few steps. He walked neatly, but it gave Sun Gohan a chance to be alone with Biddy Lee. After that, Biddy Lee pestered Sun Gohan to ask why the former could fly. In order to get rid of the entanglement as soon as possible, Sun Gohan, who was forced to helpless, explained something about Qi to her. I can fly because of Qi. This invisible energy is everywhere in nature and in the human body. As long as you master this power, you can control your body to fly. In order to demonstrate, Sun Wuhan still controlled his body to slowly get off the ground. During these years of cultivation, Yang Qing also explained a lot of theories about cultivation to Sun Wufan, so it is not difficult for him to deal with these. Can you really fly? Biddy Lee was stunned, watching Sun Wufan easily fly up in front of him, standing taller and higher, and then falling. At this time, she began to doubt whether her father was really the most powerful person in the world as she imagined. Because both Sun Wuhan's strength and this new power are beyond her understanding of martial arts, she is even sure that her father may not necessarily know the existence of this power. Yes, in addition to being able to fly, Qi can also increase our combat effectiveness. Sun Gohan said softly. At this time, Sun Wufan ran over. He had just sent Trunks away, and he seemed bored at this time. Seeing Sun Gohan who was teaching Bidley how to use Kai, his eyes lit up immediately. Brother, I want to learn too, and I want to fly too. Teach me air dance. Dance of the sky? Bidley asked curiously. It's the ability to fly, it's called sky dance. Sun Wufan was very helpless, turned his head and said to Wushan again, Wushan, don't disturb brother, you can play while you are. No, I don't, I also want to learn air dance. Being annoyed, Sun Wufan had no choice but to agree. So, Sun Gohan began to teach the two face to face. First, it is about the use and extraction of Qi. Be still, feel that mysterious power in your body, and control it with your mind. Sun Wufan's voice drifted out slowly, and Biddy Lee closed her eyes and felt quietly. For a long time, Biddy Lee didn't feel anything strange. But suddenly, for a moment, she seemed to feel that mysterious power. I feel it. She exclaimed in surprise. Control it with your mind and let it appear in the palm of your hand. Sun Gohan said softly. Do as Sun Wufan said, and soon, an invisible wind began to float around by Dilly's body, and the energy of a punch also gathered in the position of her palm. Is that so? Bidley opened her eyes and said happily. All along, she has studied and cultivated hard since she was a child, and she also thinks that apart from her father, she is the only one who is powerful. However, she suddenly discovered that there was a power far beyond her imagination, which made her mood become very complicated. Yes, Biddy Lee is very talented. Sun Gohan praised. But at this time, Sun Wushan was already shouting happily in the air. Haha, is that the case with my brother? I controlled my anger and let myself fly, and I succeeded all at once. Sun Wufan's face instantly became embarrassed, and he faintly felt the gnashing of his teeth next to Biddy Lee. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Tooth's eyes were fixed on him. Is my talent good? After staring at Sun Gohan for a while, Biddy Lee suddenly lost For a long time, living under the glory of Satan, she also felt that she was very strong and talented, but after meeting Sun Wufan, she saw a child who was so many years younger than herself, who was even stronger than herself. After so much, I started to doubt myself. Ah, fine. Sun Wufan scratched his head, but still replied. Compared with ordinary people, Biduli is already very powerful, and he is telling the truth. But, what's the matter with him? Biduli turned her head and pointed at Sun Wushan who was flying in the sky. At this time, Sun Wushan waved his hand and flew down quickly. Sun Wushan grabbed his hand and immediately dragged Sun Wushan down. Let me go, brother. Sun Wushan struggled vigorously. Who is this stupid woman? Brother, teach me to practice. Also, why didn't you practice with Qing today? These two sentences made Sun Wufan's face even more embarrassed, and he immediately covered the latter's mouth. Don't mind him talking nonsense. Then, Sun Gohan explained to Biduli again. Unexpectedly, the latter did not lose his temper as before, but fell into silence. I see, Gohan-san. She turned around resolutely, quickly got on the plane, and drove the aircraft away from here. Ah, this. Seeing the figure of Biduli leaving, Sun Gohan scratched his head in embarrassment. Chapter 872 Fighting the God of War. In the distance, Yang Qing saw everything that happened here. Looking at the original book, it feels completely different from watching it in reality. Although the specific details are somewhat different from the original, but there is no doubt that the love relationship between Sun Gohan and Biduli can definitely be maintained. Some things can be changed, but some things are just fine. This is the attitude of the gods, who are high above and do not participate in the changes of the world. After smiling slightly for a while, Yang Qing withdrew his eyes and his face became a little more serious. Since Biduli is here, then. After a pause, he said again. Majin Buu is not far away. If nothing changes, this time, the king of the realm will also descend to the realm. It has always been one step away from the realm king god. But this time. Shaking his head, Yang Qing didn't say a word. With his breakthrough, he has already transformed into a god, and his dimensional level may have already broken through, reaching the existence of the same level as the realm. With the breakthrough, the various mysterious powers that emerged in the heart represent their own class. Only gods can possess such powerful abilities. Kaiwang God, God of Destruction, maybe I am. Yang Qing's mouth curved, and he laughed out loud. It should be called the God of War. All the abilities that have emerged are related to combat. The God of Realm is created and the God of Destruction is destroyed, while the God of War is full-time fighting. Its most obvious feature is that it is powerful and unparalleled in strength. Time passed quickly, and on the second day, Biduli reappeared in front of Sun Wufan and Yang Qing who were about to start practicing. This, Master. Sun Wufan scratched his head in embarrassment. It seemed that his cultivation could no longer go on. Gohan-san, I thought about it after I went back yesterday, and I decided. Biduli took a breath and said seriously. I want to practice with you. What? Sun Gohan shouted, his voice full of incredulity. But as soon as he finished speaking, he saw Biduli clenching her fists and looking at him with fire-breathing eyes. What, can't you? Ah, no, yes. In the end, under Bidili's murderous eyes, Sun Gohan still gave in. Master. Somewhat embarrassed, he called Yang Qing, and Sun Wufan was very helpless. Since that's the case, you can cultivate with me. Yang Qing waved his hand, but said with a smile. I practice with her, with the master. Sun Gohan is a little weird. He himself knew very well how huge the energy fluctuations when the two were fighting. Did she endure such power, Biduli? Recently, we have changed the way of cultivation. Yang Qing said with a smile. I am ready to awaken the sleeping power within you to propel you to the same level as your father, Sun Wukong. With the arrival of Majin Buu, the power of Sun Wukong alone is definitely not enough, even if Vegeta is added, it is still not enough. But if there were more such a strong man as Son Gohan, it would be different. When Sun Wukong heard this, his eyes narrowed in anticipation. Really? Can I really reach the level my father is now? Of course. Yang Qing nodded. Now, go and warm up. You are responsible for teaching her to warm up, and you will come to me later. After instructing Sun Wukong again, Yang Qing stood up and quickly left here. Watching Yang Qing leave, Sun Wukong turned his head to face Bai Dilly, scratching his head in embarrassment. Well, Bidley, I can't teach you anymore. Bidley looked at Sun Wukong quietly, and the big-eyed Sun Wukong was very embarrassed. The master said that he will teach us both. You will learn a set of moves with me first, and after warming up, we will go to the master. Okay, let me see what's special about your master. I don't believe he is better than my father. The corner of Sun Wukong's mouth twitched. Satan. Don't say it's his master. I'm afraid that guy can't even take his own punch. Soon, Son Gohan taught Bidley a set of weird warm-up moves. After the two finished, because Bidley couldn't fly, Sun Wukong could only hold her and fly up. All the way to the training ground where he practiced before, Son Gohan's speed is getting faster and faster. So fast, is this the true power of Gohan-san? Before, Bidley didn't know what such a speed represented, but after she started to cultivate chi herself, she realized the huge gap between the two. At such a speed, the gas required is simply too huge. 5 or 6 minutes later, the two had reached the sky above a spacious plain. Suddenly, Son Gohan's speed began to decrease. What's wrong, Gohan-san? Bidley asked curiously. In front, it's my dad and the master's anger, they're learning from each other. Sun Wukong's eyes narrowed, and he said after feeling it. Bidley's eyes widened, but she saw nothing. Then, too. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The person continued to move forward, and after advancing for more than 100 miles, Bidley shrank his eyes in shock. Such a voice. In front of them, sounds like muffled thunder continued, and the sky was even more overcast, with golden thunder and lightning flashing, as if a huge storm was brewing. This is my dad learning from the master, fighting. Son Gohan explained, and moved on. Soon, the two of them saw that in the void in front of them, there were two figures shimmering with golden and red rays of light, constantly colliding. With every collision, the sky is filled with lightning and thunder, with circles of shock wave ripples constantly spreading. Suddenly, a dazzling golden light bloomed, and one of the figures suddenly threw a huge streamer from the hand. Bidley's eyes widened, completely unable to understand what this battle was doing. But after a breath, when the red figure punched the golden streamer to the ground, her heart trembled fiercely. Boom! The explosion with a height of more than 100 meters suddenly exploded, hot flames spread all over the sky, mushroom clouds rolled up, and the crackling sound made her eardrums hurt. This is not true. Bidley was shaking all over. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that such a big explosion could be made in someone's hands. This is simply not human anymore. Where the hell did they come from? Chapter 873 The Collapsing Worldview. Boom boom boom. Then, another series of big explosions occurred on the plain below. The dense flames almost covered an area of about 10,000 meters. Even if they were far away, Bidley seemed to be able to feel the flames that were hitting her face. Listening to the constant explosions, Bidley felt that her eardrums were shaking. Her heart was filled with shock. She couldn't believe it. Is this true? Muttering, Bidley said this. Sun Wukong stood in the air with a helpless expression on his face. He knew how the latter felt, and any ordinary person would not believe it when he saw this battle scene. After an unknown amount of time, Sun Wukong was finally smashed into the air with a punch, causing the ground to make a bang, and torn apart. Ha ha, Qing, you are really strong, and I will come again. When Gohan is here, I won't disturb your practice. After saying these two sentences, Sun Wukong stood up and waved at Gohan. You have to follow Ao Shushu well, Gohan, come on. Well, Dad, I'll definitely surpass you. Son Gohan smiled. The latter laughed and glanced at Bidily, then disappeared in a blink of an eye. This time, when Sun Wufan brought Bidily to Yangqing again, this daring woman no longer dared to speak aloud. This guy with red hair and a face of only 17 or 18 years old has such huge power in his hands. The previous scenes deeply shocked her heart. Come with me, this place is not suitable for cultivation for the time being. Glancing at the ground below, which had been turned into red-black by their battles, Yangqing said helplessly. The earth is all good, but it is too fragile. After a while, the three came to an intact plain ground. Just here. Yangqing nodded, very satisfied with the scenery here. The wind blows the grass, the green grass is green, and the ground under your feet is full of fragrance and grass. Master, how do we practice today? Son Gohan asked suspiciously. I changed my method today, and I don't need to fight with me anymore. Yangqing said with a smile. Now, sit down with your knees crossed, and I will give you a guiding point, and then you will find the power of your bloodline within yourself. The power of blood. Sun Wufan wondered. Yes, the reason why Sun Wukong can break through the Super 3 realm is because of his hard training, forcibly breaking the bottleneck and drawing out the blood in his body, and then he reached it. But this is not suitable for you. Your body itself has a strong potential. Through these 7 years of cultivation, a lot has been drawn, but there are still more hidden. You have to draw out the power deep within your veins before this massive potential can be used for you. Yangqing explained lightly. Sun Wufan nodded and seemed to understand, but it seemed wrong. Then he sat down with his knees crossed. Yangqing walked over a few steps and pointed at Sun Wufan's eyebrows, but for a moment, Sun Wufan closed his eyes and seemed to fall into a deep sleep. Bidily watched this scene carefully, and when she saw Yangqing just pointed, she put Sun Wufan into a deep sleep and covered her mouth in shock. This crimson-haired, young-looking person has an incredible power in his body. Do you want to know how strong the Earthlings can be? Suddenly, Yangqing's voice came over. Bidily was stunned for a moment, then couldn't help but glance at Sun Wufan. You don't have to look at him, he's not a pure-blooded Earthling, and I'm not even an Earthling. Yangqing said with a smile, looking directly at Bidily. When the two made eye contact, Bidily's nervous mood immediately calmed down. This incomparably powerful person, his eyes are full of gentleness and kindness, and it seems that he doesn't have to worry about what he will do to himself. Gohan, classmate, he's not from Earth. It was only at this time that Bidily dared to ask, and she felt strange in her heart, but also took it for granted. How could the people of the Earth change to such a level? Yes, to be precise, he should be a hybrid of a Saiyan and an Earthling. Saiyan? Bidily asked curiously. The Saiyans are a fighting nation in the universe. They are born with a huge power. The Saiyan babies who have just made a sound, if they have good aptitude, one person can destroy the Earth. Yangqing took a deep look at Bidily. What? Bidily took a deep breath, her eyes full of disbelief and shock. There is such a powerful race in the universe, and what makes her even more unbelievable is that such a person is actually her classmate. There are many things in this world that you don't know. You don't have to be too surprised. It's like, 7 years ago, in the battle with Sirius, the truth you knew was not the truth. Yangqing said again. Xilu, didn't my dad beat him? Bidily couldn't help but say. Ha ha. Yangqing shook his head. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Perhaps Satan is already considered powerful among ordinary people on Earth. However, in front of Saru. After a pause, he said again. I'm afraid I can't stand it, the power of one breath. What? Bidily said in shock, her eyes full of disbelief. Then, who defeated Xilu? She asked anxiously. Yangqing didn't answer, just looked at Sun Wufan who was sitting cross-legged. When he followed Yang Qing's line of sight and saw Sun Wufan, Bai Dili's face became even more complicated. 7 years ago, he was not yet 16. How could it be? I said just now that there are many things in this world that you can't imagine. And you, first of all, have to do to improve your knowledge. Yang Qing smiled. Bidili was a little lost, frustrated, and nodded obediently. Well, now, tell me. Do you want to know, how strong can the strongest people on earth be? With a twinkle in her eyes, Bidili looked expectant. She asked without hesitation. How strong can it be? Yang Qing laughed, then stared into Bidili's eyes and said. It can destroy the earth in an instant. Bidili gasped, feeling unbelievable again. She felt that her worldview collapsed overnight. How could the earth, which was incomparably wide in front of her and would never disappear, suddenly become so easily destroyed by others? Can you destroy the earth in one word? Chapter 874 He's Dead. Her worldview was overturned, and within a few words of Yang Qing, most of the previous ones were overturned. If it weren't for the scene where the world was about to be destroyed when the other party was fighting just now, Bidili swore that she would never believe such an outrageous thing anyway. I once had an apprentice. Yang Qing's voice became a little vicissitudes, and there was a hint of sigh on his 17 or 18-year-old face. In this world, he has lived for many years, and what he has experienced a long time ago is still vivid in his mind. He will not easily interfere in the affairs of mortals, but he still has feelings in his heart. His name is Ling Yi. It's an earthling. Until this time, Yang Qing still remembered that he was a handsome, talented earth boy. Relying on the mere body of the earth, he boldly stepped into a field that even Saiyans can't jump into. Even among the Saiyans, there are many who are not his opponents. Earth people. Bidli's eyes lit up. In the beginning, he progressed slowly, and any Saiyan could beat him until he was 16. Yang Qing continued to talk slowly, ignoring Bidili's words. But after that, I brought him to the planet of the Saiyans, and from that day on, his strength started to grow by leaps and bounds. If people on Earth want to cultivate, they need to break through one bottleneck after another. In theory, their potential is endless, but this endless potential is also bound by so many terrifying bottlenecks. Ordinary Earth people, poor and strange, are also difficult to enter the field of Saiyans. But he got there. Then Dili's eyes brighter, full of anticipation. How strong is he in the end? I don't know how many bottlenecks he broke through, but he finally gained a power that even he could never imagine, and he surpassed the realm of Earthlings. Yang Qing's voice was higher and higher. In addition to the original state, Saiyans can also transform. They call this a Super Saiyan. Among my apprentices, many people have been able to transform into a Super Saiyan. Even the powerful ones are like the current Son Gohan, who can transform into the second stage of Super Saiyan. Bidli gasped. Ordinary Saiyans are so much stronger than Earth people. How powerful are Saiyans who can transform? The transformation of Super Saiyan 1 is 50 times the increase of the original strength, and the second stage is hundreds of times. Yang Qing looked at Bidili and said something that shocked the latter. Bidili opened her red lips slightly, and her small mouth could no longer be closed. Shocked, so shocked. What a powerful race this is. But Ling Yi, he has reached the realm of Super Saiyan 2. He is only one step away from entering the realm of Super Saiyan 2. Quote. A mere Earthman, relying on his own efforts and talent, he has done things that many Saiyans can't do. Yang Qing had a smile on his face. As for Ling Yi, he has admired it since he knew him. He, the one named Ling Yi, where is he now? Bidli asked. It is undoubtedly admirable that an Earthling can rely on his own strength to reach the same level of strength as a Saiyan. He's dead. Yang Qing said regretfully. Dead. Bidili was stunned. Such a powerful person. He actually died. Yes, he encountered an android and died. Yang Qing shook his head. What is an android? He is stronger than Ling Yi. Is he stronger than a demihuman? Bidli wondered. The cyborg is a genetic warrior created by a human doctor. It contains almost infinite power and is very strong. Ling Yi, and my other disciple Saiyan, were not his opponents and died in their hands. Yang Qing said lightly. So, what about the androids? Where did those androids end up? Bidili asked anxiously. She intuitively sensed that the red-haired boy in front of him had a story. In this world, they are still alive. Yang Qing's eyes were very deep, and after a pause, he looked at Bidili again and smiled. For the specific story about the android, you should ask Gohan. Now, are you going to learn about Kai with me? Bidili was stunned for a moment, then decisively abandoned her pursuit of the story and nodded hurriedly. Ha ha. After laughing, Yang Qing began to tell Bidili about the knowledge of Qi. He has a wealth of experience and a high level of his own. In addition, he has a wealth of knowledge reserves in the realm of the gods. He is naturally very clear about the tricks of these professors. In just a moment, it was an example and a demonstration, which explained it very clearly for Bidili. Now, you try to awaken the energy in your cells, guide it step by step, and extract it into the palm of your hand. This point, what you have already accomplished under Gohan's teaching before, should be very simple for you. Yang Qing's voice was gentle and passed into Bidili's ears. The latter closed his eyes. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Start to feel. After a while, her clothes rose without wind, and between her hands, a cloud of light blue energy was fluctuating. Is that so? Opening her eyes, Bidili asked expectantly. Yes, that's right. You only need to speed up this process and become familiar with the process of extracting qi, and then you can start the next cultivation process. Yang Qing nodded. To be honest, Bidili's talent is not good, but it is not bad. After all, Satan is a troublemaker, but his strength is indeed strong among ordinary people. His daughter, no matter how bad it is almost nowhere to be seen. Start cultivating. As long as you extract qi over and over and become familiar with the energy in your body, the faster you will progress. Things only progress under constant familiarity, so as to have a further understanding of them. Maybe there are tricks and shortcuts in other areas, but with effort, there is never any short circuit. Bidili listened to Yang Qing's guidance and began to get in touch with this unfamiliar energy. And Sun Wufan, at this time, the aura on his body began to explode and became unstable. His breath suddenly surged, and in just a split second, his hair had turned golden, and with one more breath, he was already surrounded by golden lightning, and he was at the stage of transforming into Super Saiyan 2. Okay, what a horrible gas. Bidili, who had just come into contact with qi, felt a shudder from her soul just as soon as she felt it. Chapter 875, Keep It Simple. Compared with the familiar classmates in front of her, the qi she had just gathered was like a drop of water, the difference from the entire ocean. It was so vast that with just one glance, her whole body trembled and trembled with this breath. This is the instinctive fear of human beings when facing powerful creatures. Don't be afraid, Gohan has been practicing in front of me for many years, and his own talent is also strong. It is normal to have such strength. Yang Qing's faint voice entered her ears, making Bidili inexplicably calm down. She couldn't help but glance at Yang Qing. Bidili felt that this red-haired boy was very mysterious. Immediately afterwards, Yang Qing observed Sun Wufan for a while before speaking again. It seems that he has inspired the deeper Saiyan blood of himself, and it is not far from entering the next realm. Son Gohan, who inadvertently turned into a Super Saiyan, doesn't know how he manifests in the outside world. In his sea of consciousness, his face was solemn, looking at a figure that looked the same as him, but with red eyes. Who are you? Sun Wufan said in a deep voice. Who am I? I am you, ha ha. From time to time, he let out a low growl, and the red-eyed Sun Wufan said fiercely. How could you be me? Who the hell are you? Sun Wufan shouted loudly. You go deep into your bloodline and want to inspire my power to be used by you. Don't you know who I am? The red-eyed Sun Gohan laughed. Sun Wufan's eyes narrowed, and then he glanced around here. In the sea of consciousness, the sky is full of crimson, the foot is barren, and the gravity is 10 times that of the earth, which can be called a very harsh environment. After 3 breaths, his eyes narrowed. That is. A black-haired youth, shivering behind a hill, looked at the two of them in the sky, his eyes full of fear. That is you of the blood of the earth, you are really weak waste. The red-eyed Sun Gohan sneered. At this time, Sun Wufan just woke up. He understood that the scene in front of him must be his master, who used an unknown force to send him here. You are my Saiyan blood. Not bad. He is your bloodline of earthlings, but it's such a waste. The red-eyed Sun Gohan laughed and let out a low growl. How can I get your power? Sun Wufan asked in a deep voice. He heard Ching say that because he is different from his father, he can quickly gain strength. This method is to stimulate his own Saiyan bloodline. The deeper he stimulates, the more powerful he can gain. If this time is successful, he will most likely directly step into the next step. Defeat me, you'll get my power. The red-eyed Sun Gohan roared loudly. Then the next moment, his figure suddenly met him and attacked Sun Gohan. In just a moment, the two were fighting together. The violent power makes the sea of consciousness surging, clouds and mists, and thunder and lightning rolling. The two of you came and went, and the Qigong waves flew all over the sky, causing countless explosions. This guy has the same fighting power as me. Sun Wufan's face became serious. Haha, I am you, how can you defeat me? The red-eyed Sun Gohan laughed. And, because I'm a pure-blooded Saiyan, my power is stronger than yours. With a loud roar, the power of the red-eyed Sun Gohan skyrocketed again. After 3 breaths, Sun Gohan was crushed by the red-eyed Sun Gohan, causing him to keep retreating. This battle, it seems that Sun Gohan has lost. The black-haired earthling Sun Gohan hid behind the hill in fear, looking at the two in the battle, his eyes kept shrinking. After fighting again for half an hour, Sun Wufan's face was ugly. He had no choice but to quit because he was exhausted. Outside, seeing Sun Wufan's breath stabilized and Yang Qing's hair turning black, he turned his eyes and looked at the latter. How is it? With a casual tone, Yang Qing asked. At this moment, Sun Gohan opened his eyes. I'm not yet his match. There was not much disappointment in his tone, Sun Wufan said calmly. Are you confident this time? Yang Qing asked again. It's all right, master. Sun Wufan laughed, paused, and said again. Yes, it will take a while. That's good. Yang Qing nodded with satisfaction. Among his previous apprentices, he was most satisfied with Sun Gohan. This kid is talented, has infinite potential, and has a good heart. He is a good seedling. As for Bidili, while cultivating herself, her eyes drifted to Sun Wufan from time to time. She found that this classmate really had a lot of mystery in her body that she didn't know. Ah, Biddy, how is your cultivation? Standing up, Gohan, who just found Bidili next to him, said in a panic. He just opened his eyes. Because of the battle in the Sea of Consciousness, he forgot the existence of Bidili. Student Gohan. Bidili looked at Gohan with complicated eyes, and after a while, did. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Zanyan smiled and said, I feel that I have made great progress. Look, I've got this new power in my hands. While speaking, Bidili reintroduced the chi in her body into her palm. This time, the speed of its guidance is many times stronger than before. That's great, Bidili, you are really smart. Sun Gohan smiled and praised. Yang Qing looked at Sun Wufan's poor acting with a smile and shook his head. This kid, it's too fake, the way of flirting with girls is not good. Simple way of flirting. Fools can see that Sun Wufan likes Bidili. And Bidili also has a little interest in Sun Wufan. These two clearly like each other, but because of the shyness in their hearts, it is not easy to point out which really makes him an outsider, a little embarrassed. An hour later, the practice was over, and the three were ready to go home. Bidley, gather the breaths you practiced in the afternoon around your body and command them to fly towards the sky. Yang Qing ordered softly. The latter is unknown, but still does. In the afternoon, she was already familiar with the practice of qi. It was just a call. After 2 seconds, the qi had spread all over the body, and then she controlled the qi to fly into the air. At the next moment, Bidley was surprised to find that she could fly, and she went to heaven. Gohan, Gohan, I can fly, I can dance the sky. Bidley shouted excitedly. At this time, she was only 1 or 2 meters away from the ground. But the mastery of new skills still made her very excited. Chapter 876 I'm waiting for you. That's great, Bidley, you're amazing. Sun Wufan sincerely praised that the adolescent boy, the girl he likes feels good, and he feels good too. Hearing Sun Gohan's words, Bidley seemed happier. That's it, fly back, Bidley. Yang Qing said with a smile. The talent is not high, and Yang Qing naturally does not expect to cultivate Bidley into any kind of master. Instructing Bidley was just a matter of interest. On the way back, Bidley was not proficient in the mastery of the air dance at first, and her breath was often chaotic and fell into the air, causing Sun Wufan to be in a hurry. Yang Qing looked at the two with a funny look. It's nice to be young. He sighed, and before he knew it, he was also an old man. When she returned to Sun Wufan's house, Bidley had almost mastered the air dance, but because she was still short of breath, she couldn't fly for too long. Afterwards, she flew the aircraft home. In just 2 days, since she came into contact with Sun Gohan's life, she felt that her worldview had changed drastically. What I have to say is that she is even more curious about Yang Qing's group. On the 3rd day, Bidley came again. This time she saw Sun Wukong up close. When she saw Wukong, who was almost as young as Sun Gohan and had the same appearance, her eyes were full of surprise. Hello, uncle. Bidley was a little nervous for some reason, and bent down very low. Haha, Gohan, is this your classmate? What a lovely girl. Sun Wukong said nervously. Hee, Dad, she's Bidley. Gohan scratched his head stupidly and introduced. And Chi-Chi stood aside, just like watching her daughter-in-law, praising Bidley for being better here and there. This family made Bidley embarrassed. However, she is rarely disgusted by the way she sees herself as a family. Gohan, do your best in today's practice. On the side, Yang Qing reminded with a smile. Yes, Master. Sun Wufan said sternly. Yesterday, he saw what a new round of cultivation was, so he was very focused these days. Are you doing some mysterious cultivation? Sun Wukong asked curiously. Yang Qing naturally understood what Sun Wukong meant and said amusedly, Wukong, his cultivation is not suitable for you. Ah, hee. Sun Wukong smiled awkwardly, then stepped back. However, if Gohan successfully survives this training, his strength will catch up with you. Yang Qing laughed again. Sun Wukong's eyes lit up and he laughed. That's great. Every time I fight with you, I lose my spirits. Yang Qing smiled and naturally understood that no one can stand being abused every time, right? Afterwards, Yang Qing took Sun Gohan Bidley to the last training in the plains. Today, Yang Qing began to teach Bidley how to stimulate the qi in her body. Control the chi in your body and condense it in the palm of your hand. According to Yang Qing's words, Bidley easily gathered in the palm of her hand to form a ball with scattered energy. Compress it with your mind. Yang Qing spoke again and looked at Sun Wufan. At this moment, the latter has entered the state of yesterday, and once again transformed into the state of Super Saiyan 2, it is obvious that he is fighting. Bidley's compression this time seemed a bit difficult, and it took a full minute to barely succeed. Is there any remaining chi in the body? Yang Qing asked casually. Also, Bidley gritted her teeth. Break out in a burst, let them rush into the energy of your palm, and imagine the impact of high-pressure water slugs. Yang Qing spoke up. Bidili closed her eyes, and her robes began to move without wind. After more than 10 breaths, the energy group in her palm suddenly became large, shining brightly. Yang Qing's eyes moved, and she looked over. Then, the next second. Boom! The air mass in Bidili's hands exploded, extending a light blue streamer toward the front. The blue light extended forward for about 3 meters, and then the light group exploded. Boom! Like a grenade exploding, a pit of about 3 meters was blown out on the ground. Covering her mouth, Bidili looked at the scene she had caused in shock. Her face was pale and her body was covered in sweat. However, she still couldn't believe that this was the result of her own making. Your anger is still too weak. At this time, Yang Qing shook his head. Looking at the shallow pit, this power, if you encounter a slightly stronger person, I am afraid that even the skin of others can't be blown off, and you can beat ordinary people. Biddy Li, who still thought she was powerful, immediately lowered her head in shame. According to the method I taught you, absorb the qi in nature and strengthen yourself. Yang Qing said again. Bidli nodded. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Then she began to sit down with her knees crossed. This method of breathing and gathering qi is similar to Piccolo's method. It is a method of meditation to enhance one's power, but it doesn't require much physical exercise. It seems that Sun Wukong and others are working hard to make their bodies strong. In the process of exercising, due to the collision of huge kinetic energy, the qi rises rapidly. And absorbing the energy of nature can also improve. It's just that in this kind of cultivation, the energy is not so violent, it's just fast. Gradually, the air around Bidili's body was a little distorted, and the airflow began to scramble, and the tiny energy particles in all directions were moving towards her body. Nodding slightly, Yang Qing knew that the woman in front of her had already mastered this method. On the other hand, Sun Gohan fell into his own sea of consciousness again. Just like yesterday, he fought the red-eyed Sun Gohan again. But today, his battle was obviously much smoother than yesterday, and he was able to maintain an evenly matched situation with the opponent. You are much stronger than yesterday. The red-eyed Sun Gohan said solemnly. No, I was already familiar with your combat routine yesterday, and today is just for cracking your routine. I'm not much stronger myself. Sun Gohan explained aloud. So it is. The red-eyed Sun Wufan opened his mouth and paused. He looked at Sun Wufan and said again. However, you still can't beat me, go back. I admit that it is not your match yet. Sun Gohan laughed out loud. However, it won't take much time. The red-eyed Sun Gohan narrowed his eyes and sneered. Then I'll be waiting for you. Chapter 877_. In the second battle, Sun Gohan still did not win, but he was much stronger than the first time. The power of the red-eyed Sun Gohan is completely possessed by the pure-bred Saiyan, and his fighting style is more biased towards the Saiyan, which is obviously different from Sun Gohan. While fighting with the red-eyed Sun Gohan is also learning the opponent's battle. Opening his eyes, Sun Wufan saw that Yang Qing was squinting and seemed to be resting. He didn't bother, but walked in front of Bidili and observed it carefully. The young man's ignorant heart does not know what he likes and what love is. He just looked at Bidili's face, and felt that this face was getting better and better. I don't know how long I watched, and suddenly, Sun Wufan was stunned. Immediately afterwards, Bidili's eyes trembled and opened. The sudden opening of his eyes made Sun Wufan startled and took a few steps back. Gohan-san, what are you looking at? Bidli asked curiously. No, nothing. Sun Wufan hurriedly waved his hand, and his face turned red with a swoosh. Seeing Sun Gohan like this, Bidili also became shy. For a while, the two of them lowered their heads, not daring to look at each other. At this moment, Yang Qing opened his eyes with a smile on his mouth. Have you finished practicing? Then go back today. After speaking, Yang Qing got up and flew into the sky. The two looked at each other, cheeks still flushed, and hurriedly chased after them. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye, and on this day, as usual, Yang Qing took Sun Wufan to practice. After half a month of training, Sun Gohan's power seems to be more and more concentrated. Compared with before, although his power has not increased, his combat power is even better. Sitting down cross-legged, Sun Gohan quickly entered his own blood world. "You're here again. This time, have the confidence to beat me," Red Eyes said coldly. His body trembled, and he had transformed into Super Saiyan 2 mode. Sun Wufan smiled, and then spoke lightly. "With my current strength alone, I really cannot defeat you." "Then are you still here?" Red Eyes sneered. "It's just useless work." "That's not true. In the past half a month, I have thoroughly familiarized yourself with your power, and I have learned everything that I should learn," Sun Gohan said with a smile. "So what?" Red Eyes narrowed. "So, I decided to beat you today." Sun Gohan was still smiling. "Ha ha ha, you haven't beaten me for so long. What makes you confident? Say it now." Red Eyes shouted coldly. "Sun Gohan, you are just a mixture of Saiyans and Earthlings. In terms of blood, you can't compare to a pure-blooded Saiyan like me." The latter didn't care, just silently transformed into Super Saiyan 2, and then assumed an attacking stance. "Since you don't give up, then I'll let you know the gap between us today." The Red Eyes shouted loudly, the golden aura erupted all over the body, and the fine thunder and lightning surrounded the body, and the momentum was stronger than before. "Sure enough, you still have hidden power." Sun Wufan's eyes narrowed, and he said calmly. "I do, but what about you?" The Red Eyes laughed loudly, and with a flick of the figure, he had already rushed over. Bang! Between the light and flint, the two have collided once. Sun Wuhan was directly knocked out by a powerful force. But it wasn't over yet. The red-eyed figure was like electricity, and he quickly attacked Sun Gohan again and again. The dull voice kept coming out, and the entire bloodline world was filled with muffled thunder. The figures of the two moved quickly in the sky, handing over again and again. But after half an hour, Sun Wufan was still at a disadvantage. "Do you want to beat me with a power like yours?" Red Eyes sneered loudly, and once again punched Sun Gohan into the sky. Boom! The violent force shattered the ground directly, and Sun Wuhan stretched out his right hand and stepped out. "Red Eyes, let's fight here." Out of the corner of his eyes, he glanced to his left, where, behind a rock, the Earthling, who was trembling all over, was shivering. After a sentence, Sun Gohan closed his eyes. After 2 breaths, an incomparably vast force surged out from the depths of his body, and the violent airflow even formed a whirlwind and went high into the sky. In the air, the pupils of the red eyes shrank suddenly. How is it possible? The power of Sun Wufan's explosion at this time is more violent than before, and it is too powerful. From a young age, whenever I was angry, there would be a gigantic force that surged out. 7 years ago, I finally took control of this power, which is different from the Super Saiyan's boosting power. This power is my potential. In these 7 years, I have been constantly exercising my potential, trying to master more anger, more power. I succeeded. But, this power, I usually don't use it easily. Son. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Gohan slowly ascended the sky, and a flat voice spit out from his mouth. In those green eyes, deep down, there was anger soaring to the sky. The power surging under his anger was equally irritable, with thunder and lightning all around him, and the crackling sounded non-stop. However, if I beat you, I'm bound to win. Suddenly, Sun Wufan's tone became sharp. In the next second, his figure slammed forward, and in just a flash, he was already in front of Kai Yan. The terrifying speed swept through the air, and even the air was rubbed and rubbed with a crisp sound. So fast. The red eyes' pupils contracted, and they had to dodge. However, A tyrannical force had already hit his face firmly. Hit. Ohm. Unbelievable in his heart, he fell down with red eyes. In the sky, Son Gohan's attack was not over yet. He has a fatal flaw in triggering the power deep within his body through anger, that is, he is cruel and ruthless. Moreover, the offensive is continuous and will never stop unless the enemy is killed. As the controlled anger became stronger and stronger, his power became stronger and stronger, but this ruthless state was also more violent. Bang! Once again, he punched the red-eyed face, directly knocking it to the ground, and the ground in the radius of 1,000 meters was completely shattered. Die! Sun Wukong roared, and countless qigong waves appeared in his hands. The next second, his hands were aimed at the ground and printed with a bang. Hush shish! A series of qigong waves rushed down the sky and directly bombarded Kai-Ai's body. Chapter 878 Ah! Painful voices kept coming from Kai-Ai's mouth, and it could be seen that Kai-Ai had been injured under the attack of Son Gohan, who was far beyond his power. A series of dense qigong waves bombarded for more than 10 breaths before slowing down. The red eyes are covered with scars, and the roar is repeated, and it is about to rise into the sky. But suddenly, his pupils shrank again. In front of him, just less than an inch in front of him, a face stared at him. This face he was very familiar with, it was Sun Wukong himself. Entering anger mode and fighting with all his strength, Son Gohan is simply not the same person as normal. Under normal circumstances, he is gentle and polite, like a well-informed student. But at this time, he turned into a ruthless warrior. Die! From Sun Wukong's mouth, a word faintly spit out. A fist slammed out again. Bang! The tyrannical force directly hit the belly of the red eye, and even burst out of the body, slamming into the hill behind it, directly causing a mountain to collapse. Ah! An unbelievable light flashed in his eyes, and the red eyes took a few steps back, completely unexpected. Under the attack of the other party, he was so vulnerable. Bang! One punch didn't knock him down. Sun Wukong moved forward indifferently, and punched again. PFF'd. The force of this fist penetrated the whole body, the red eyes trembled, and the blood had been spurted from the mouth. He felt that all the bones in his body were shattered. However, Son Gohan didn't stop. Bang! Take another step and hit it hard. PFF'd. The red-eyed eyes have begun to be empty, and a black light appears in front of him. His yi-shi was a little erratic, and his body began to shake. A powerful force has long been broken up by Son Gohan with 3 punches, and the transformation of Super Saiyan 2 has also collapsed. Slowly, Sun Wukong raised one arm and aimed at the red eye. The light blue qigong wave shone brightly, and after a breath, it burst out, directly drowning the red eyes. Watching the red eyes dissipate in front of him, Sun Wukong's eyes were indifferent. He inexplicably felt that a golden energy condensed and merged into his body. Is this the blood of the Saiyans? There was a flash of clarity in Sun Wukong's eyes, and he turned around. Behind the rock, the bloodline of the Earthman was still trembling, looking at Sun Wukong, full of fear and panic. After striding over, there was a bit of solemnity in Sun Wukong's icy eyes. You don't need to hide, my own blood, I know very well. The indifferent voice came out, and the bloodline of the Earthling who was trembling actually trembled, and then slowly stood up. It's really interesting. Earther blood, the corners of his mouth curled up, and he shook his head. Unfortunately, you found out. Compared to the blood of the Saiyans, the blood of the Earthlings, the potential is too high. Sun Wukong said indifferently. You want to destroy me too. The blood of the Earth people joked. Taking the third step, I must fuse my 2 bloodlines to raise 1 level. Son Gohan said softly. I see. Earthman blood nodded. But, I'm afraid you don't know where I'm at. I don't know, so I haven't used all my strength all along. Son Gohan said calmly. The eyes of the Earthlings suddenly tightened, and then he said, you mean that your current power is not your full power? For more than half a month, I absorbed the fighting experience of Saiyan blood and fused with myself, in order to quickly fuse with him at the moment of defeating him. Therefore, obtain the power that can easily defeat you. Sun Wukong didn't answer, and began to explain lightly. From the time I made up my mind to destroy him, your fate was already doomed. The pupils of the bloodline of the Earthman shrank, and after a breath, he began to laugh up to the sky. Ridiculous, do you know that my potential is endless? Accompanied by the laughter, the blood of the Earthman trembled, and the violent aura directly collapsed the 3 mountains behind him, and the stones around his body were even more suspended, and dense lightning flashed around him. He didn't transform, and his hair was still pitch black, but at this moment, the power surging in his body had far surpassed the Saiyan blood Son Gohan. This Earthling bloodline, who has always been very timid and powerless, is the strongest in this bloodline world. Very powerful. Sun Wukong nodded and said that the energy shown by the other party at this moment is not much different from the power that burst out of his own anger at this time. Judging by such power, it may be difficult to defeat the opponent. Unless, in reality, he takes another step forward and becomes stronger. However, Sun Wukong himself knew that it would be too difficult to move forward again in reality. I just entered this bloodline world just to improve again. So, this chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. If so, it's stuck in a dead end. Outside, a huge light blue aura suddenly erupted from Sun Wukong, who was doing it cross-legged. Yang Qing opened his eyes and narrowed his eyes. What's wrong with him? Such anger burst out from his body, so terrifying. Biddy Li trembled aside and said. This power was far more terrifying than any aura that Sun Wukong had burst out before. Compared to her, she was as small as an ant. This is the bloodline of the Earthlings inside his body. Yang Qing explained softly, frowning slightly. I didn't expect that the blood of the Earth people in his body would actually be pressed against the Saiyans. It's incredible. No wonder, since he was a child, his potential was so terrifying. However, in this case, it is not easy to handle. Hearing Yang Qing's last words, Biddy Li said worriedly. What's the matter? Gohan, will he be okay? No, just go a step further, I'm afraid it will be more difficult. Yang Qing sighed. In the bloodline world, Sun Wukong's expression was still cold, and he felt very calm when he felt the violent violence that was constantly emerging from the bloodline of the Earth people. Finally, the chi in the bloodline of the Earthlings has been raised to the limit. This is a terrifying force that has reached the peak of Super Saiyan 2. Whether it is Saru 7 years ago, or the blood of the Saiyans before, it cannot be compared with it. How is it? My strength, now, do you still have the confidence to defeat me? Do you think it's easy to gain power? Son Gohan. Ha 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 ha. The blood of the people on Earth laughed loudly. Chapter 879 A Different Super Competition 3. However, Sun Wukong's expression at the moment was still calm. He just fixedly stared at the Earthlings and let them laugh wildly. After a long time, Sun Wukong made a sound. Yes, it's easy for me to beat you now. The laughter of the bloodline of the Earthling stopped abruptly. What did you say? Maybe before the fusion of Saiyan blood, I was just on par with you, but now. I'm so much stronger than you. Sun Wukong's faint voice came out, and the breath in his body surged again, and it suddenly rose a little. Really, just so much? What are you kidding me about? The blood of the Earthman turned ashen, and he didn't think that just a little bit stronger would be able to defeat him. With a show of body shape, the blood of the Earthman launched an attack on Son Gohan. However, the ensuing battle made the faces of the blood of the people of the Earth more and more ugly. The two were in the void, and the ground kept colliding, but the scale of victory was constantly tilting towards Son Gohan. How is it possible? The Earthlings roared loudly. I said, just a little bit, and I'm enough to beat you. Sun Wukong's face was calm, and his subordinates kept attacking. Time passed slowly, and this battle lasted for a long time. It has been 3 hours since the two started fighting. As time went on, the scars on the Earth's body became more and more, and the breath began to become chaotic. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. How is this possible? The blood of the Earthlings shouted in the sky. However, what greeted him was just an indifferent punch from Sun Gohan. Boom! The fist came down, directly turning the blood of the Earthman over. Outside, Sun Wufan, who was doing it cross-legged, had a calm expression, but the aura on his body flickered. Gohan, what happened? Bidley said worriedly. He is going through the final battle. Whether he can succeed or not depends on today. Yang Qing said softly, his eyes were deep, as if through Sun Wufan's body, he directly saw the battle in his bloodline world. Hopefully, though. With a smile on his face, Sun Gohan is indeed a martial artist with a brain. His fighting art, more inherited from Sun Wukong, is not only relying on brute force, but also brain. As time passed, gradually, the sun went down and the sky began to darken. At this time, in the bloodline world, the blood of the Earth people has been completely at a disadvantage, and was knocked to the ground by Sun Wuhan with his fists again and again. Damn it! He roared up to the sky, but in the next moment, he was punched again. After fighting for such a long time, the blood of the Earth people has reached its limit. He was covered in scars, and his mood was extremely manic. I can't believe that the other party actually defeated him with such a power that is so much higher than him. The heart of the bloodline of the Earth people is collapsed. After punching the Earther bloodline to the ground again, Sun Wuhan also fell suddenly and rode directly on the Earther bloodline. Let go of me. The blood of the people on Earth was crushed and overwhelmed, and immediately roared. However, what greeted him was the cold fist of Sun Gohan. Bang 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 bang. With a punch, Sun Gohan struck indifferently. Gradually, blood splattered, the blood of the Earthman stopped, and his consciousness began to drift, unable to see the scene in front of him. Half an hour later, the bloodline of the Earthman lay there, motionless, as if dead. However, Sun Gohan could still feel the faint breath. He stopped beating and stood up. Die! Reach out and out with one hand, aiming at the bloodline of the Earthlings on the ground. Light blue light flickered, and a Qigong wave burst out. Boom! The ground exploded, and the blood of the Earthlings was directly evaporated by the high temperature of the flame in the face of such an attack, and disappeared. A trace of strange energy began to gather, and then merged into Sun Wuhan's body again. This kind of feeling is like after the death of the previous Red Eye. Sun Wufan knew instantly that this was the bloodline of the Earthlings, and he had begun to merge into his body. Woo! Success! Taking a long breath, a faint smile appeared on Sun Gohan's face. The state of anger was lifted by him. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, the bloodline world began to collapse, and earth cracks and explosions occurred everywhere, sweeping the entire world. In a blink of an eye, Sun Gohan has opened his eyes in the real world. When he opened his eyes, what he saw was Yang Qing's curious eyes. How is it? I made it. Sun Wufan said with a smile, and then he realized himself. Feeling now. There is an explosive force, surging frantically in my body, trying to burst out. Try to lure him out. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Come. Yang Qing smiled. Sun Wufan nodded heavily, and then he jumped into the sky. In the next instant, there was a sudden thunder and lightning in the sky. Ah! Sun Wufan roared up to the sky, and dense golden thunder and lightning began to entangle and wrap around him, and a violent force was wandering around. The sky that was about to be dark suddenly turned dark. Dark clouds surged, and countless thunder and lightning were shuttled. Even, it could be clearly seen that around Sun Wufan, the cracks that appeared and disappeared constantly appeared and disappeared. The power of Super Saiyan 3. Below, a smile appeared on Yang Qing's face. This power was very obvious. It had already crossed the Super Tournament 2 and entered the field of 3 directly. Very good. He smiled and said, happy for Sun Gohan's progress. At Sun Wukong's house, Sun Wukong, who was eating, suddenly raised his head. What a powerful air! Sun Wukong stopped eating and put the bowl on the table, his face dignified. This terrifying power is almost the same level as after he released it with all his strength. Upon closer inspection, Sun Wukong's expression was a little weird. Actually, it's actually Gohan's chi. He didn't know whether to be shocked or happy. Shaking his head, Sun Wukong smiled and pressed one hand between his eyebrows. After a flash, he had disappeared from the home. Obviously, the powerful power of Sun Wuhan's sudden burst made Sun Wukong's curious meal not in the mood to eat. When a teleportation came to Yang Qing's side, Sun Wukong also looked up at the Sun Wuhan, who was transforming in the sky. What happened to Gohan's transformation? How is it different from mine? In the clouds, the figure was surrounded by golden lightning, and its aura exploded to the extreme. However, his hair is not golden. Chapter 880 Expectation. High in the sky, there was lightning and thunder, and the surging energy breath was mighty, causing cracks in the dimensions. This breath, Sun Wukong is very sure, is the terrifying energy fluctuation that he had in Super Race 3. But in the sky, Sun Gohan's transformation looks completely different from him. Black hair, black eyes, wearing a black martial arts uniform, is the appearance of Sun Gohan at this moment. Lightning is surrounded by his body, and the energy is so powerful that anyone can tell his insignificance, but he looks like an Earthman. I didn't expect that his transformation after breaking through was like this. Yang Qing had a smile on his face, thoughtful. Breaking through the limitations of blood, and merging the blood of Saiyans and Earthlings in the depths of the body, Sun Gohan's third stage has also changed. The state after the potential is drawn is actually the same as the state drawn through the ritual when fighting with the devil puppet in the original book. However, the power that Sun Gohan obtained at this moment is real. Instead of the vain strength as in the original work. The strength drawn from the old world King God, although it seemed extremely powerful at the time, but after a long time, if you don't practice, it will quickly degenerate and become weaker and weaker. If it is one's own strength, even if it is not cultivated, how can this strength retreat so powerfully? At this time, Sun Wufan didn't have that kind of trouble. After all the power in his body burst out, a smile appeared on Sun Gohan's face. Finally, his swollen breath began to shrink again, and gradually return to plane. In the sky, the lightning and thunder, and the vision shrouded in dark clouds quickly disappeared. Sun Gohan fell to the ground with a smile on his face. Thank you, Master Qing, I finally broke through. Yang Qing nodded. It was you who worked hard and succeeded. The master led the door and practiced himself. Compared with the guy in the original book who likes to read, this Sun Wufan has worked hard to some extent. Afterwards, everyone went home. In order to celebrate the progress of Sun Wuhan, Sun Wukong went to hunt a few huge beasts, and then a few people gathered around the fire, found the seasoning, and began to barbecue. The main staff of this barbecue is the law library. A dignified devil, after coming to Earth, he slowly fell in love with this self-sufficient way of eating, which made people speechless. However, I have to say that Faku's craftsmanship is indeed very good after years of brewing. Wukong, after half a month, the world's #1 martial arts meeting, are you going to participate? While eating, Yang Qing suddenly raised his head with a smile and mentioned it. The world's first martial arts club. Sun Wukong exclaimed in surprise, and then immediately laughed. Great, I'm going. Sun Wukong misses the martial arts club that he grew up with since he was a child. I still remember that when he was there, he met such formidable opponents as Teacher Wu Tian, Tianjin Fan, and Piccolo. Seeing that Sun Wukong agreed so quickly, Yang Qing smiled and then looked at Sun Wufan. Gohan, you are going to participate this time too. Huh. Sun Gohan was taken aback. That's great, Gohan, Dad really wants to know how strong you were all these years. Sun Wukong patted his son on the shoulder, looking forward to it even more. He knew that Sun Wuhan's power had caught up with him, and the two of them would not be able to tell the difference if they didn't really fight once. I'm going to. After being silent for a while, Faku, who was roasting meat silently, suddenly made a sound. Although he didn't know what the number one martial arts in the world would be, it was enough to have Sun Wukong. In fact, Faku has been practicing with Sun Wukong all these years. The two have long established the foundation and affection behind them. Oh no, it's friendship. Faku, you have to go too, haha. Sun Wukong is even happier. It can be seen that the more strong there are, the more excited this belligerent guy is. So, the news spread quickly. At Buma's house, Vegeta came out of the gravity room to practice, and took a towel to wipe the sweat from her face. Sun Wukong wants to participate in the world's first martial arts club. Hee, just to make him recognize the gap with me. Clenching her fists sharply, Vegeta's face showed a trace of excitement and hideousness. After the last battle with Xilu, Vegeta was ashamed because of his weakness. After that, he practiced harder and harder. 7 years later, his strength also increased greatly. Although he has not entered the field of Super Saiyan 3, Vegeta's power has also improved rapidly, reaching the realm of terror. In some respects, his combat power at the moment is only a line away from that of Sun Wukong and his son. Dad, I'm going to participate in the world's #1 martial arts club. At this moment, Trunks ran over, excited. Oh, you also know the #1 martial arts club in the world? Vegeta raised her eyebrows and asked curiously. I heard it from Wushan. He said that he was going to participate in the world's first martial arts meeting, and he is practicing with his brother these days. Son Gohan. Vegeta's face became solemn, and after a breath, he showed a confident smile again. This time, let's show you who is the strongest Saiyan. Right. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Vegeta has always been brooding about his status as a prince. He is the prince of the Saiyans, but this group of low-level warriors surpassed themselves again and again, which made him humiliated to the extreme. Every time he wanted to prove that he was the strongest, someone would always slap him in the face. Who is stronger, you or Kakarot's son? In the blink of an eye, Vegeta asked again. Trunks was stunned for a moment, then scratched his head and said, as for me and Goten, I should be stronger. Good. With a smile on Vegeta's face, she nodded in satisfaction. This is the bloodline of the Saiyan. The pure bloodline is much stronger than that of the low-level warrior. You can practice with me these few days. But, Dad, I want to go to the amusement park. Trunks said embarrassingly. In cultivation, if you can hit me, I will accompany you. Vegeta said with a cold face. Really? Great. Trunks jumped for joy. Vegeta snorted and quickly left here. He felt that his body was very excited. After practicing for so many years, for the first time, he was so thirsty. I hope time flies faster, so that we can have a battle with Kakarot as soon as possible. At the same time, the Earth powerhouses scattered all over the world opened their eyes with a hint of anticipation on their faces.